Good morning, early game crew. Rise and shine. We're almost to the weekend, almost to preparation for a winter storm this weekend. So fingers crossed that it doesn't get too bad. But we'll be on Monday, too, to talk you through it. I'm Elijah Campbell. She is Jen Jensen. No Preston Thorne today. So it'll just be Jen and I hanging out with you until about 8 o'clock. And my pal Noah Chass from ABC Columbia is going to join me in Studio 803 for the final hour of the show. So I'm excited about that. Good to have Noah in the studio. Now, he is an Eagles fan, so when it comes to his NFL analysis, he has no dog in the fight anymore. The San Francisco 49ers made sure of that just a few short weeks ago. But we got a lot to talk about today. NFL playoffs, who Carolina fans are cheering for, a couple of one former Gamecock and a current Gamecock listed amongst the Athletics' most influential leaders in sports. We'll get to that later in this hour. In the second hour, we're going to take a trip to Lawsuit City because, well, I think college basketball has reached a level of absurdity that we can no longer ignore, even on this program. Taking a look at the SEC men's basketball standings, looking later in the show at what teams are in South Carolina's neighborhood. And there's one team that I think I am moving out of the neighborhood. Two teams I would probably even consider moving out of that neighborhood. And, of course, we're going to break down tonight's South Carolina-Oklahoma women's basketball game because while it's not as hotly contested as South Carolina and Texas, because that has started to become quite the budding rivalry, especially from a basketball sense, Oklahoma is maybe one of your second or third toughest tests in the SEC, especially on the road. We'll see how that's going to go down. There's one player, though, that I am most intrigued to see how she does in that game. I'll tell you who that is later in the show, too. But I want to start off with a poll question that we posed at 107.5 The Game on Twitter. And the final votes are tallied. But it's a pretty simple question, right? Because while we still talk a lot about football offseason and what the Gamecocks need to do in the transfer portal and a bunch of other stuff, I mean, we just got an example of how one team in college football turned around the worst program, the losingest program in the history of the entire sport. And then within 2 years of hiring this head coach, they go undefeated and win a national championship. It's a pretty surreal story. And the reason why this is taking the sports world by storm is because of how improbable it felt. Again, when I watched that national championship game Monday night, I stayed up a little later than I planned because I'm watching the national championship celebration, and I'm still not believing what I'm seeing. You ever read a news story, you ever see something on TV that is just so phenomenal and hard to believe that you just have to keep staring at maybe a sentence or whatever's on your screen to believe exactly what you saw, right? I think I felt a little Vince Scully in me when Kirk Gibson hit that home run in the World Series back in the 80s, and he's trotting around the bases on a gimpy leg saying, I don't believe what I just saw. I still had a hard time, even though I picked Indiana to win the game. I expected them to beat Miami. When it still happened, the culmination of them playing 16 games in a season, winning all of them, including the national title game, was still hard for me to believe. And I thought, if I could be alive to see Indiana win a national championship in college football, the sport itself has changed pretty fundamentally. So when we came into the studio, we got back from having Monday off, and Terry and I were talking about what we want the poll question of the day to be. He brought up something that I was thinking about, which was, does Indiana winning a national title give you hope that the Gamecocks can one day do the same thing, right? Because if there's anything that we can describe that national championship game as, or really what Indiana's done as a season and as a program and what they've done to turn this thing around in the most dramatic of fashion, if there's any way I could accurately describe it, it's not just shocking and impressive and all these certain adjectives I could throw out there. One of the ones I could find it is inspiring a little bit. If Indiana can do it, anybody in theory should be able to do it. But I wanted to see if Gamecock fans felt that way, right? If the magic of Indiana maybe made you feel that South Carolina can someday do the same thing or even something similar, right? Again, only one team gets to win the national championship every year, So that's a pretty high standard. But we saw a lot of things in college football that made you feel like the new landscape makes things ripe for A, just a little more parity, B, for turnarounds to happen maybe a little faster than they used to. And then I think a byproduct of all of that is a team like Indiana turning it around. When you get the right head coach in place, when you're able to take care of the right things, you can achieve really great heights. And that's what Indiana did. So I was curious to see if Gamecock fans, and if you listening, felt the same way. Now, we only had about 76 votes, so it's a small sample size. So I'm interested to see what you have to say this morning, if it gave you any hope. But on the poll question from earlier this week, of course, we asked, does Indiana winning the national title give you hope that the Gamecocks can one day do the same thing? 52.6% said no, and 47.4% say yes. Now, Jen, if we can get cut 4 from yesterday's list, Curt Cignetti was kind of asked a question about what his message would be to, or what message him winning a national championship in Indiana sends to other programs that are hopeful, maybe inspired by what his team did. And here's what he had to say in that regard.
I think we sent a message, first of all, to society that if you keep your nose to the grindstone and work hard and you got the right people, anything's possible. In our particular situation in the athletic world, college football's changed quite a bit. The balance of power also. But we had the right people on our staff, in the weight room, in the locker room. And we had great senior leadership and togetherness, and we had a really good quarterback that played his best when the chips were down. And if you prepare the right way, which this team did week in, week out, and put it on the field, we met the challenge every single week. And we're 16-0. Are there 8 first-round draft choices on this team? Probably not. No, there aren't. But this team, the whole was greater than the sum of its parts.
And the last part there, the whole being greater than the sum of its parts, is one of the quintessential team lessons that you can learn in sports. Like, this Indiana story is great because it does show, as corny as it may sound, the power of teamwork, right? He mentioned the leadership. He mentioned being up for the challenge and just putting your nose to the grindstone and working. Because here's what makes me feel like South Carolina can, I'm not saying win a national championship, but I will say reach heights maybe they've never seen before. And why I can't consider it impossible, even though you've never really, outside of the Spurrier years, when you had a couple 10-win seasons and you played in a college football era that, unfortunately for them, wrong place, wrong time, did not have a 4-team college football playoff or even a 12-team college football playoff, because if we've been playing in this format for a while, South Carolina under Spurrier would have gone to a few of those 12-team college football playoffs. But that's the past. We can't help that. But what can we do in the future to maybe see this program reach heights that they haven't seen in this era of college football? One of the reasons why I might say yes, and that it gives me, if I'm a Gamecock fan, hope that you can see your team in the playoff, that it's not, if Indiana proves anything, it's stuff that South Carolina can do. It's something that Vanderbilt even did, right? Now, they didn't win the national championship. They didn't even get to the college football playoff. But if you're 10-2 in the SEC, I'd say that gives you a really good chance to be in the college football playoff. Vanderbilt can say that they've been closer than South Carolina has. But they did it a different way than Indiana, which also should give you hope, because there's more than one ways to bake a cake here. Vanderbilt did it in some similar fashion, right? They got the quarterback they needed. They got coaching staff assistants they needed. It wasn't like Clark Lee just got to Vanderbilt. He's been there for a few years now, and it was bad at times. However, he got some of the right assistant coaches in there. I don't think Vanderbilt does this clearly without Diego Pavia. That helps, but they don't do it without Jerry Kill joining the staff, Coach Beck joining the staff as the offensive coordinator. They got a lot of the right pieces in place. They retained a lot of their production from one successful year to another successful year, and that helped build a foundation and help build a culture and do a lot of the cliche stuff that does still help translate to wins in college football. I think Vanderbilt's another example. But when I think about South Carolina specifically, there are some things here that you can work with and build on as a program, right? Even if we're just, we're doing Garnet Glasses in the next segment, but even something that to me would make me feel optimistic is the fact that you do have significant buy-in from your fan base financially, right? I don't think you're able to keep a Lenora Sellers, a Nick Harbor, a Dylan Stewart if you don't have that significant financial buy-in. I don't think you're able to bring in the raw number of transfers that you did without significant financial buy-in. I think you have an athletic director in place right now who gets it and who also helped foresee a couple of turnarounds in his previous stop at TCU. I think something that gets lost in the whole equation of what happens in these type of turnarounds, you need administrative support. And when Kurt Cinetti got there, he got a lot of financial and administrative backing. That is a necessity. And I would even say that he got a lot more of it than someone like Tom Allen did before him, who was his predecessor at Indiana, right? Jeremiah Donati gets it. At TCU, he oversaw the hiring of Sonny Dykes and him turning around that program to having that one magical year that saw them in a national title game, right? TCU fans will remember that forever. TCU is a program that just, a decade and a half prior were in the Mountain West. If you would have told them that in 2022 they would have a season that saw them play in a national championship game, they may have never believed you, certain TCU fans. They may have never believed they could get to those heights, even though they had a lot of success in the sport of football. But they were able to do it because of financial backing, getting the people in place that you need, acquiring the talent. Talent, too, for South Carolina is another one of those things. You're always going to have a good talent level because at least, the coaching staff you have here right now does bring in good talent. You do have good recruiting classes. You're able to retain a lot of the talent that you have, but some years you're just not able to put it together. Injury luck, bad coaching situations. I think the Mike Shula thing stunted a lot of what this program wanted to do last year. I think the offensive line kind of being the issue kept your offense from really coming to fruition as what the concept of it was. But there's also other things that you need that South Carolina needs to be able to maybe get to a height they haven't reached before. The leadership has to be there too, right? I'm not in that locker room. I can't tell you who is a significant leader and who is not. However, there were games that Indiana played this year where they simply refused to lose the game. At Iowa, at Penn State are the two that really come into my mind, right? Those are trap games on the road. It takes a lot of leadership and a lot of intestinal fortitude to be able to pull those games out. And you need a little bit of luck, too. As great as this Indiana story is, this would have been a great story if Indiana was 10-2, and it also would provide the exact same lesson that them maybe winning a national championship would have done. Because, again, this is still a historically bad program. But you need a little bit of luck, too. They needed luck to win a 5-point game at Iowa, where Iowa scored a touchdown with less than 2 minutes left, and Indiana had to have a big play late in the game to pull that out. They needed a little bit of luck whenever they're playing at Penn State. And Penn State does an all-out blitz, and Fernando Mendoza throws a pass that Omar Cooper has to jump to get barely 1 foot inbounds for it to be a touchdown. If he is just 1 inch a little further back, that play is out of bounds, and who knows, maybe Penn State beats them. That's the type of stuff required to be able to win in college football sometimes, too. Sometimes you need a little bit of luck because these games can be won within very fine margins. If Indiana if they're not able to, pin Miami back deep to where whenever they block that punt, that ball's recovered in the end zone, we're maybe not talking about them winning a national championship, and the story's not the same. There's a lot of things that South Carolina has here that can turn this thing around from 4-8 last year, but it's up to them to put it together on the football field and do what Indiana did, dominate the fundamentals, be able to have that buy-in, not be complacent during the season, and become a more organized operation than anybody else. What Indiana did isn't rocket science. Doing it is easier said than done, but there is a pathway to do it. Coming up next, though, we'll put the Garnet glasses on for basketball. What did the men's basketball team do against Oklahoma that can give you hope that they can string together a few wins in SEC play? And, well, we still have a national championship caliber team on campus. We'll put on the Garnet glasses coming up next here in the early game.
Preston here for Cato's Power Equipment. Cato's Power Equipment has been family owned and serving the Midlands since 1983. That's over 40 years. And it doesn't matter whether you're a weekend warrior or a professional landscaper, Ben Cato provides top-notch service, great deals, and the mom and pop's values that you love. At Cato's, they are proud to offer a wide selection of new and pre-owned mowers, tractors, and more. So it doesn't matter. Whether you're a weekend warrior, seasoned landscaping pro, Cato's has got you covered. If you're ready to invest in something new, the friendly team is there to make the process easy. They'll help you choose the right equipment, they'll find financing options, and they keep your gear running strong with expert service and parts. So swing by Cato's Power Equipment today or call them at 803-254-3711. That's Cato's Power Equipment at 803-254-3711.
Things looking pretty good on the highways this morning. No significant slowdowns at this point and no accidents. Going to be a high of 60 today. Could see a stray shower. Definitely not a washout, but just maybe a pop-up shower here or there today. Tomorrow, we're looking for some scattered showers. 53 for the high. Then comes the weird wintry weather for the weekend. Maybe some rain and sleet possible on Saturday. A high of 39, but that overnight low of 25. And then Sunday, going to have some ice to rain, again, mixed precipitation. 38 for the high, overnight low of 33. So the weekend will be interesting. In the meantime, it's 43 right now on 107.5 The Game.
All right, time to take off my normal glasses here and do what's one of my favorite segments on the show each week. Put on the Garnet glasses that Preston irresponsibly bought after South Carolina had a 30-3 lead against Texas A&M at halftime.
Irresponsibly bought them in bulk.
He didn't just buy one or two. He bought them in bulk. We have enough here. We can maybe give out some. You know, if anybody's ever just hanging out here in the studio, we could just give out some.
We could autograph them because you could see as well with an autograph across the front as you can just with the plain lenses.
Yeah, you're essentially, when you put these bad boys on, you're punting on any actual visibility. When it comes to, like, functionality, definitely props.
Yeah, green turns to black.
Yeah, I can't read anything that's on, like, the monitor.
Yeah, no, it's insane.
But it makes for a really good bit.
Oh, it does. Absolutely. That's why you need to be on the live stream, because this is really exciting stuff.
And it's why you watch us, you know, when we're doing our live YouTube watch-alongs. Because who knows? You might see us, you know, have some funny commentary on the game, or you might see us do something irresponsible, like buying a bunch of heart-shaped Garnet glasses at halftime of a game where you feel like they're going to beat the number 3 team in the country, and then it didn't happen. So really, if we have anybody to blame, it's easy to blame because he's not here, but we just blame Preston.
I mean, yeah. It's not like this is going to be recorded or anything that he could go back and listen or watch and hear any of these comments of blaming him.
You can't. No, this is not live. This is not being recorded. This is just a conversation between friends.
Absolutely. So now we'll continue on and not be able to see.
That's right. But what I do see when I put these things on, obviously, is maximum Gamecock optimism. And with the men's basketball team this year, naturally, I think we all kind of got the gist in non-conference play that it's going to be an uphill battle getting to the NCAA tournament, and there's still so much work that needs to be done. So much work. But you know what? I would like to see some program growth here. And when it comes to program growth, at least with this team, I'm still fresh off the idea that on Tuesday night when they beat Oklahoma, that was the best game they've played offensively all year. And maybe that is a good sign, right? If obviously the whole point of this segment is for optimism, and if you saw that not last night, 2 nights ago, where you saw guys like Kobe Knox, Michi Johnson get to the basket, cut really well without the ball. Mike Sharjomps moved really well without the ball. I think Tuesday night they proved that they can be hard to guard if they really want to be. If they buy in and really want to be, they can be a team that is difficult to guard defensively. Now, the team defense, if you just look at metrics, has gotten better, right? You can maybe call it luck. Maybe you can call it, you know, decent defense that Oklahoma's best three-point shooter, Nigel Pack, wasn't able to make one on Tuesday night. And Oklahoma's got their own problems. But when you go up there and you take care of business, it makes you feel good because Oklahoma's not the only team in the SEC that I look at and I'm like, I'm not very sold on them. I'm not very sold on Ole Miss. Missouri is one of those teams, they could beat anybody, they could lose to anybody, which is good for you when you go and play those games. You've already beaten LSU, and LSU has to come here, and oh yeah, LSU's 1-5 in SEC play. Yeah, I look at Tennessee, and I'm not incredibly impressed with what they've done. They've proven that no lead is safe with them because they can have a lead and you can easily escape from 18 points down like they did against Kentucky over the weekend.
So are we not seeing a lot of hope for SEC teams come March?
I'm not sold on a lot of SEC
As you're going
teams
down the list, that's a little disturbing.
Mississippi State's really bad too. Now, Texas A&M is good, and Carolina has to go to Texas A&M. I don't love that matchup, but on the other hand, you do play Mississippi State, and I watched Mississippi State last night, and as every other game with them this year, I'm not buying it. Mississippi State's only win this year was against in the SEC was against Texas on the road, and Josh Hubbard needed to shoot a bajillion shots for him to get his 30 points. And he's really, if you stop Josh Hubbard and you make him be a volume shooter, you're probably going to win that game if you just rebound. Mississippi State's pretty bad.
Oh, boy.
There are some bad teams in the SEC this year. It's a lot more gettable. Last year, you looked up and down that schedule, and you saw all NCAA tournament teams with the exception of LSU. It is not that way this year.
Crazy what a difference a year makes.
Oh, for sure. And it's not like the SEC.
Significant.
And it's not like the SEC didn't spend any money.
Yeah.
They spent a ton of money in the transfer portal. You even have one team that is so desperate enough to get a boost of energy. They signed or they're bringing in a guy who, A, might only be eligible to play one game because of a TRO, and may or may not have signed 3 NBA contracts, which we'll get to that when we go to Lawsuit City. We punch that in our GPS.
Okay.
But there is a national championship caliber program on campus. The women's basketball team is fully healthy. How many times this year have we talked about games where Tania Latson's maybe not healthy, can't play, got to figure out, ways to win without her, or, Gotti, as they call her, Agat McKeer, who I think is one of their better, one of the more important players. I think she can help them a lot. But she's healthy. You're able to get Alicia Turnabes on campus. She's getting in the swing of things now. 2 games, and I think maybe the best thing that could have happened to her is have that Coppin State game be played. And even though it's a low-pressure game against a team you should beat by 1,000 points, get her some minutes in there, maybe a little bit more of an easier acclimation period before you get into a road game tonight against Oklahoma. But if they beat Oklahoma, then it's a good sign that they're taking care of business and that they're national championship caliber once again, which they are.
I've watched some videos of her where dunking is just smooth for her. Like, she's just so good. So she's going to be fun once she gets acclimated.
Yes.
She's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
She can really play.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, like basketball is one of those things, too, especially when you go to a team that's like South Carolina that is as top-heavy of a lineup as they have. Finding yours can be a little difficult, but I think there's a way that she can get in there and find hers a little bit as the season goes along, and then you'll really see her become more of an asset. Only played 5 minutes against Texas. Got in there early, had a couple fouls.
Mm-hmm.
I think once we really get into this thing, I think she's going to be a key contributor. But then, if I got the Garnet glasses on, too, I know baseball had a historically bad season last year, but you know what? Jen Jensen, you can relate to this. Hope springs eternal on opening day.
Absolutely.
We're less than a month from opening day, but it is a new-look Gamecock roster.
Uh-huh.
And what's the one thing Paul Maneri talked about last year when it came to what his team didn't have? Oh, you didn't have the arms that are hitting 95, 96 on the radar gun and having the velocity that your opponents in the SEC have. Well, by most accounts, they had a top 5 transfer portal class, and a lot of those players were pitchers with really strong arms.
Okay.
They're a big mystery. Even with the Garnet glasses on, I'm not here to guarantee success, but I'm guaranteeing intrigue.
And wasn't there to be a little bit of baseball activity this weekend?
They do have scrimmages scheduled.
We're not sure what'll happen with that with the weather, but yeah.
There may or may not be a little bit of a weather thing that might throw off a lot of people's weekend plans.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, my gosh.
But coming up next, Nick Emenwari and Ernest Jones make the Seahawks one of the Gamecock-friendliest teams left, or the Broncos have a few former Gamecocks. But Nick Emenwari and Ernest Jones have turned into really good NFL players. But can they get Seattle to the Super Bowl and slow down the Rams? Well, we'll discuss that coming up next here on the Early Game. Yes, 2025 taught us a lot of things. And if one of those things is, if Indiana can win a national championship, anybody can win a national championship. But also 2025 taught me that time can fly. And you know what? In the blink of an eye, it may feel like January 2025, and then we get to December of it, and there you go. There's your whole year. And a lot of things that you wanted to do in the year, you just don't get to do. But with Zero Res Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning, they can at least take care of the carpet cleaning for you with their New Year's sale, right? Sometimes things just get away from us, and they get away from me a lot too. But that's what the New Year's sale is for. Right now, right? Where you can get 2 rooms of carpet cleaned at Zero Res Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning for only $139. And all you got to do, it's pretty simple, is just mention my name, Elijah Campbell at 107.5 The Game, and you'll get an additional 2 rooms cleaned for free. Take advantage of Zero Res Zero Water technology. Get your carpets cleaner with no residue and schedule online today at ZeroResColumbia.com.
Still looking pretty good this morning. No accidents, no significant slowdowns. And your forecast, looking good so far. 60 for the high today. Could just see a pop-up shower here or there, but not a big rain event today. We will see more scattered showers tomorrow with a high of 53, overnight low of 37. On Saturday and Sunday, that's where things get a little dicey or icy. Rain and sleet, high of 39, overnight low Saturday night of 25. And again, mixed precipitation, ice to rain on Sunday, high of 38. And things could still freeze going into Monday morning. So again, just be watching the forecast as the week progresses. Right now, though, it's cloudy, it's dry. It's 43 on 107.5 The Game.
Sunday is going to be one of my favorite sports days on the calendar, and it is every year because Super Bowl Sunday is awesome. And early in the playoffs, when you have games on Saturday and Sunday, it makes for a really fun football watching weekend. But to me, Championship Sunday is always my favorite because you have obviously a Super Bowl trip on the line, and you have the NFL's best doubleheader you're going to have all season long. Now, it is a bummer that with Bo Nix breaking his ankle in the last drive of overtime in the Broncos-Bills game, he will not be available, and we're going to have that first game of the day in the AFC Championship game be what I think is going to be pretty uneventful. And we'll break that game down a little bit later in the show. But the game of the day will be Seattle and Los Angeles. Obviously, the Rams squeaking out one on the road in overtime, and the Seahawks dominated the San Francisco 49ers. But the last time we saw these two teams play, it was the game of the year. Remember, it was on a Thursday. It was December 18th. And if you didn't have Amazon Prime and you didn't get to watch that game, then I feel sorry for you, because that was the game of the year in the NFL. And we're thankfully getting those two teams to play that exact same building on Sunday. But what makes this so intriguing locally is that two of the most important players on the Seahawks defense may not be the best players overall defensively for the Seahawks team, but I think two of the most important players on this defense are former Gamecocks, Ernest Jones, Nick Emenwari. Now, I do a bit every Sunday on Westwood One where I do the Super Sunday Six, and it's 6 players that are playing in the slate of NFL games. They're not the best players that are going to be playing that you're going to watch on your TV, but they are the most important, right? Football is the ultimate team sport. You need support players, you need role players to be able to help out your superstars. And, well, when you think about superstars, you don't think about that offensive tackle or that interior offensive lineman or the kicker or any other player that actually might end up having as much say in the outcome of the game as your quarterback or a star wide receiver or a star running back. I'm definitely going to have one of Ernest Jones or Nick Emenwari. I still have to decide which one I'm going to do for the Super Sunday 6 on Sunday, because I do firmly believe that they are the two most important players defensively for the Seattle Seahawks, and they're both important for one reason. It's because they are the most versatile players on the field, because they are so active in the run game and in the pass game. Ernest Jones even as a linebacker. I don't know if I've seen many linebackers that record 126 tackles in a season and 5 interceptions. The 5 interceptions puts him like 2 off the league. I think Kevin Byard led the league in interceptions with 7.
Wow.
Ernest Jones is a linebacker, wasn't far behind.
That's incredible. And for being so young in the league.
Yeah. And then you look at Nick Emenwari, too. Obviously, his position requires him to have to be good in the pass game. But the way they use him a lot to blow up screen passes and also play near the line of scrimmage sometimes and act as a linebacker occasionally, Mike McDonald has kind of used Nick Emenwari as like the perfect chess piece to kind of just move him around wherever he wants, because Nick's skill set allows him to do that. I think it's one of the reasons what made him so valuable. Like, we know how hard Nick Emenwari hits. I remember, watching his first career start at Arkansas and him sticking KJ Jefferson, who was a quarterback built like a Mack truck, and then noticing, oh, this guy is a true freshman, can really play some ball. And he's brought that to the NFL. You know, you watch some games and there might not be something you notice, but upon maybe a rewatch or from a different angle, you see something that really impresses you.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Emenwari against the 49ers is coming up to play the run in between, you know, like the center and the right guard. And he completely blows up the play, or he gets kind of like chop blocked. He falls down, but immediately gets back up in like this in a split second and chases Brock Purdy out of the pocket and forces an incomplete pass.
Oh my gosh.
And it was one of those things where it's like, that recovery time is incredible.
Yeah.
He still affected the pass.
I'd still be on the ground.
Oh, I would be calling for an ambulance.
Yes.
Wherever the stretcher is, I would need access to it immediately.
Yeah. But no, his versatility, that's incredible.
And that's what makes him so valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of guys in the NFL that play a similar role, but Nick Emenwari's done it really well. And I think that's one of the main reasons why he's a finalist for Defensive Rookie of the Year. The numbers are good, but his effect on the defense is really good. And one of the reasons why the Seattle Seahawks are great in run defense, they're great in pass defense, is they got a lot of guys who can handle all of that type of stuff. We see a lot of defenses that maybe they just rely on forcing a lot of turnovers for their defensive success and give up a lot of yards, a lot of bend but don't break defenses, a lot that are maybe good against the run and bad against the pass or vice versa. I think one of the reasons why I like the Seahawks to win this game in a really close game is because they can stop the run and they can force turnovers. They do have linebackers who can pick off passes like Ernest Jones. They do have a nickel corner like Nick Emenwari who can play up, stop the run, and be able to be effective in their pass game. And I think that's one of the reasons why Mike Macdonald's one of the best defensive coaches in football. Not that he's the head coach, but he has built this defense kind of in his image. Mm-hmm. And it is really cool, though, that we get to watch a conference championship Sunday and maybe two of the most important players in the most intriguing game are former Gamecocks. Yes. A vested interest.
I'll be a Seahawks fan for that.
I just like watching them play. Mm-hmm. And even just defensive side, right? Because we're talking a lot about just, you know, the local angle of this. Even just from a national perspective, the Seattle Seahawks are so intriguing because I still firmly believe that's the most well-rounded team. Now, what you're hoping, if you're a Seahawk fan or if you are a Gamecock fan that's jumping on the Seahawks bandwagon for Sunday and just try to see a couple of Gamecocks win Super Bowl rings as legitimate starters on that defense, is that you need Sam Darnold to not go full Darnoldinho on you on Sunday, which is throw multiple interceptions against the Rams, which he tried to do when these teams played last time, right? Mm-hmm. He threw a few picks before the fourth quarter. He was really bad, honestly, for the first three quarters of that game. And he was really bad against Los Angeles when they played them earlier in the season on the road. I think he threw 3 or 4 picks in that game, too. And then the last time he played them before that was when he was a quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, and they played that game in Arizona because of the wildfires in L.A., and he threw about 4 picks in that game and got sacked a bajillion times and just looked genuinely scared to be playing the game of football in that environment. He has not played well against the Rams. That's my only element of hesitation is if, because Nick Emenwari and Ernest Jones can have games like they have all year where, you know, maybe one of them gets an interception. They both combine for 16 or 17 tackles, and they have really good games. But if it's a 13-10 game and you lost because Sam Darnold threw a pick in the red zone when you're driving to win the game or something like that, that can clearly derail it. And the one thing about the Seahawks that I liked is they didn't have to rely on Darnold because they do run the ball really well with 2 really good running backs. However, Zach Charbonnet got hurt, and he is going to be out for this game. And if they win the Super Bowl, too, he's done for the season. And Kenneth Walker's going to have to be the workhorse, which means maybe you do need Sam Darnold to throw the ball a little bit more. That's my only hang-up. That's the only thing that I have a question about. I'm going to pick the Seahawks to win the game because I'll show a little bit of faith that Sam Darnold doesn't mess it up, or at least makes a few passes like he did the last time they played in the fourth quarter that ultimately ended up being the difference. But what Seattle does defensively and on special teams, having a weapon in Rashid Shaheed who ran a punt back for a touchdown against the Rams on that Thursday night football game and opened up the game in the divisional round against the Niners with a kickoff return for a touchdown, can certainly change some things and make Sam's life a little easier.
I'm excited for this game.
I
think it's going to be really good. And honestly, now I want to see them beat the Rams just since the Rams beat the Bears.
There's a little extra juice
there. A little
for
extra
you.
juice there. Yeah.
A little bit. Are you
it's a good game.
Are you one of those fans that, like, when somebody knocks out your team that you want them eliminated out of revenge? I know it's like 50-50 both ways. I know some people want to see them out of spite lose.
But if you beat me, then you better go all the way. That's kind of the other thing too. So because that way you can say, oh well, we lost to the Super Bowl champs. But
and then if you did, it's like we took the Super Bowl champs to overtime.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, but again, there's a little extra incentive because of the Gamecocks being on the Seahawks team. So I think I'm going to lean that direction.
Yeah, I think if I'm a Gamecock fan, not only do I want the Seahawks to win because you have two Gamecocks, but because those two Gamecocks are one of the most important to what they do defensively. Well, speaking of Gamecocks and being important, well, The Athletic polled a bunch of athletes and coaches on who the best leaders in sports are, and we have two Gamecocks on the list. We'll tell you who next. So much of our sports discourse when it comes to talking about teams and what it takes to win championships and achieve great things often revolves around leadership. And I love the stories of great leaders, right? And you need it to be able to achieve great success in team sports. And The Athletic, this is from the Athletic staff, polled a bunch of different, whether it be professional sports coaches, college sports coaches, general managers, people that make a lot of the decisions in sports and that are around great leaders, people that would have great insight on who the best leaders in sports are. Well, they polled them and they got the top 50 best leaders in all of sports, professional and college. And there are a couple of non-surprising things. Number one is Steve Kerr, the Golden State Warriors head coach. But there are two that are in the top 10 that represent South Carolina in one way or another. And one of them is at number 2. And that would be Dawn Staley at number 2. Out of all the leaders in pro and college sports, Dawn Staley was voted as the number 2, or the second best leader in all of sports. Now, I like what they do because they get some quotes from what the voters say, and they also kind of lay out the credentials. And the credentials that they have for Dawn is that she's won 3 national titles, made 7 Final Fours as a coach, including 5 in a row since 2021. And you know what? With the way the team has looked this year, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you get number 8. And in the process, she's become an advocate for women's sports and a respected voice in basketball. Now, here's what some of the voters said. Sue Enquist, who's a former UCLA softball coach, says that she teaches you how to hover above the noise, have fun, and grow. She is a truth teller. Now, I think we all can agree, if you've been following this women's basketball team since their rise to the top of the sport, that Dawn's not going to lie to you when it comes to whether or not you're going to play, whether or not you have a spot on this team. If you're not playing very well, she is going to let you know, but that's why I think a lot of her players grow in the way they do. Eddie George, now the Bowling Green State head football coach and Tennessee Titans legend, 1995 Heisman winner, says her impact goes far beyond wins and championships. She builds people, sets standards, and has left every program better than she found it. Dawn transcends sports. The best leaders in every area or every arena look to her for wisdom, perspective, and guidance. And I think with somebody with Eddie George's accolades and kind of his professional sports resume, that says a lot there too. And then a former NBA assistant coach, Scooney Penn, says, it's the way players always talk about her. The love they show her, the way they go back to the school, and the way she shows up for them, that's really powerful. And I think all of what those 3 individuals said, I think, is incredibly true. And one of the reasons why she's looked at as one of the best leaders in sports. And if you're not one of the best leaders in sports, then you can't come to South Carolina and win 3 national titles and have this level of success that they've had. And one of her players is also on this list, not just on the list, is number 9 on the list, and that's Asia Wilson. There's a reason that we have a statue of Asia Wilson in front of Colonial Life Arena. And what the voters say, KJ Wright, a San Francisco 49ers assistant coach, says, I just admire the way she carries herself. She's fun and spreads positive energy. And then Olympic gold medalist gymnast Jordan Childs says she is confident, she is real, and she shows up for her team and for her people every single day. Her greatness is evident, but she reminds me that true leadership is about heart, consistency, and never dimming your light so others can feel comfortable. And that's why she's one of the best players. She's not one of the best players. She is the best player in women's basketball on planet Earth right now. And I think it's really cool. Just in general, when I saw this story, I clicked on it to read it just because I was really curious to see who's going to make this list. I didn't expect 2 Gamecocks to be in the top 10 of best leaders in all of sports.
What does that say? And one homegrown.
Yeah, one homegrown from Asia Wilson, here from Columbia. Played at Heathwood Hall. It is really cool just to see that, though. Obviously, any type of recognition for your school and your programs is really neat. But I don't know if there's maybe a better honor than saying that you are one of the 10 best leaders in all of sports, voted on by not just people in your profession, but people that play other sports or coach other sports.
Yeah, this isn't just basketball.
Yeah, it's not just basketball. And we heard, what Eddie George had to say about Dawn Staley. I think Eddie George is one of the best leaders I've ever seen in sports, college or professional. And to get those type of accolades is really cool. And I think it is just kind of validating to see that being how you get to the level that they're at. And I think before long, we'll see, certain people like Kurt Signetti rise up that list a little bit. Fernando Mendoza, that's how they were able to kind of tie this back up with what we talked about at the beginning of the show, with if Indiana having, or what they did, giving you any hope that South Carolina football can do the same thing. One of the things you have to have is elite level leadership. And it sounds cliche, but ultimately that's true.
No, you do, because that elite leadership is what develops the players who become elite leaders.
Yes, because some people are born leaders. Some people also have to kind of find their way into becoming that.
Yep.
And I think Dawn got that out of Asia, and Asia also helped get that out of Dawn too. That's how she ended up getting her first title. Hour number 1 is in the books. Hour number 2 is coming up next, and we're going to take a trip to Lawsuit City because the most pathetic thing in sports happened yesterday, and we'll discuss that next.
I-20 westbound before Piney Grove Road, we do have a report of an accident there. So allow some slowdowns as you're headed to, or allow a little extra time to get through there. I-20 westbound before Piney Grove Road. 60 for the high today. Maybe just a stray shower could pop up at any point. Tomorrow, more increased chances for scattered showers. 53 for the high. Saturday and Sunday, that's where we get into some rain and sleet. Some icy conditions are possible. So certainly going to keep an eye on the forecast for what's to come this weekend. Right now, though, it's cloudy and it's a little bit warmer than it has been the past few mornings. It's 43.
Hour number 2 of the early game starts right now. I'm Elijah Campbell. She is Jen Jensen. No Preston Thorne today. He'll be back tomorrow. And then in the third hour of the show, in the third and long hour, in Studio 803, Noah Chast from ABC Columbia is going to join me. And then also at 8:30, Matt Dowell from Watch Fox will join us to talk about tonight's big women's basketball tilt between South Carolina and Oklahoma. But right now, Jen Jensen, I think it's time to put something in our GPS. Because I know I don't like making these trips without Preston Thorne. And we have a trip planned to Lawsuit City tomorrow. But something happened yesterday that made me channel my inner Axl Rose. And no, that's not get worse live over time. But go to Lawsuit City. Because it's time.
I cannot wait.
Alabama basketball did something.
Are we speeding there? Are we speeding to Lawsuit City, or are we kind of taking our time getting there?
We're hauling tail.
We're hauling tail, okay.
Because when I saw this yesterday, I immediately said, oh.
In the car.
We're getting in the car.
Buckle
we're flying there. Yeah.
Okay.
Like whenever, you realize the store's about to close in like 45 minutes, but there's something you really need for dinner that night, and you're like, okay, I got to get there now.
Okay.
We got to haul.
Okay.
May or may not be breaking traffic laws, which I would never admit to doing.
No.
Never done it.
Mm-mm.
Never. Ever.
Good boy.
Always a safe driver. But Alabama basketball announced that they added Charles Bediako to the lineup. And if you are a big-time college basketball fan, you've been watching SEC basketball, even non-Carolina games for the last 2 years, you might say, wow, Charles Bediako. Where does that name sound familiar? It should sound familiar because he was the starting center on Alabama's 2023 Sweet 16 team. He was a teammate of Brandon Miller, who is now a Charlotte Hornet, was the number 2 pick in that year's NBA draft, and has been playing for the Hornets for a couple of years now. He has been out of college basketball for about 3 years, and he didn't get drafted, but he has signed 3 different Exhibit 10 NBA contracts. But he has not appeared in an NBA game. Therefore, Alabama is arguing that he is eligible.
Oh.
They have added him to the team. I assume he's enrolled in school. I would love to see what the class schedule looks like, especially considering most schools have been back in session for at least a week when it comes to starting a new semester.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he'll get caught up.
I'm sure someone's going to catch him up.
Yeah.
I'm sure plenty of professors at Alabama would be like, yeah, we'll enroll him in my class. Yeah.
I got you.
Because he did leave school early with eligibility left on the table. It was a bad move because he wasn't going to get drafted. Didn't get drafted and has been playing in the G League. Now, this isn't the first time something like that's happened this year. Like, I'm going to paint Alabama as kind of the pathetic bad guy here. But also, Baylor's a pathetic bad guy because they did add James Najee. Now, if you really want to argue semantics, James Najee never signed a contract in the NBA. Now, he did play some professional ball overseas, and that's another whole issue that we have in college basketball is that there are guys who have played a few years professionally, which in Europe, they allow you to play professional basketball before you turn 18. So it's, I guess, a little different. But usually those guys that are good enough just come to the NBA after that. The NCAA has kind of allowed it to where you can play there a little bit and then come play in college. That's a whole other separate thing. But what makes this one to me so egregious is the fact that Charles Bediako has a page on SpaTrack. And if you don't know what SpaTrack is, it is a website that tracks every single professional athlete's contracts. And if you have a page on there, you have signed a contract at one point or another. As of right now, let's start back when he didn't get drafted. He signed as an undrafted free agent with the San Antonio Spurs in 2023. It's an Exhibit 10 contract. So for those who don't know what that is, Charles Bediako signed that Exhibit 10 contract, which essentially gives you a chance to earn a two-way deal. So there are Exhibit 10s, there are two-way deals, and then there are your normal guaranteed NBA contracts. A two-way deal is basically a deal that allows you to go back and forth from the NBA team to the G League team to develop as needed. An Exhibit 10 doesn't guarantee at all that you're going to play in the NBA, but it gives you a spot on G League rosters to be able to use, and your rights are held by the team that obviously signed you to that deal. And you get a signing bonus between $5,000 to $50,000 whenever you sign it. And if you stay with that G League affiliate for 60 days, then that money is given to you, right? It's a pretty clear pathway to be able to make that type of money, right? It's not like he doesn't have a chance to make money. He's already on a G League roster. He stays on that roster for 60 days, and then bam, you get a pretty cool signing bonus there. And then if you play your way in well enough, they can get you to a two-way deal, which then can get you into the millions that you're earned. Now, the contracts he signed, like with the San Antonio Spurs, was a one-year, $1.19 million deal, which isn't guaranteed. He has to eventually earn that, but there is a chance to earn that, right? They give him the opportunity to earn that. Then in 2024, when the Spurs when they elected not to sign him to a two-way deal, the Denver Nuggets, 1 year, $1.8 million that he could potentially earn.
And I'm curious, how much has he been making so far? Do we know?
According to Spotrac, it says his career earnings is still zero, but I don't know how accurate that is, considering you still have to pay them to be on a G League team. But Exhibit 10s are usually league minimums, which I can't remember off the top of my head what the NBA league minimum is, but it's not nothing. You know, you're not playing for free. You are still making money. Looks like 1.1 million is the minimum for being on an active NBA roster. Exhibit 10s can vary a little bit. But can he make more in NIL in college? Sure. But he was able to make NIL in college while he was there. I know there might have been some exceptions because he had a student visa, and I know there's some really weird rules that maybe allow some of those players not to be able to make that. But the fact that he is in a place where he can make that now is completely different. And that's what separates this maybe from a James Najee. The James Najee one I still find to be pathetic and egregious too, because if you're a college basketball coach and you're saying, oh, I need a guy who got drafted already, because Najee got drafted. Charles Bediako didn't, but he has signed 3 different Exhibit 10 contracts. Now, the thing that makes the Bediako thing a real head-scratcher is there's no guarantee he's allowed to play after Saturday, because a TRO that was signed in Tuscaloosa yesterday is what is allowing him to play this game. And part of that TRO says that Alabama can't be punished for playing him. So a lot of people have been trying to suggest online that, oh, well, if Alabama's allowed to do this, the NCAA can just say your win doesn't count against your college basketball or NCAA tournament resume. Well, legally, the NCAA cannot punish them for that. That's part of this TRO. But this makes him eligible to play against Tennessee on Saturday, and Alabama's hosting Tennessee. And Charles Bediako is going to play. He practiced yesterday with the team. He left his G League team to practice with Alabama. But then there's a hearing on January 27th. And if he loses in court on the 27th and the judge rules in the NCAA's favor, then he's only playing for 1 game and that's it. There's a real chance he's not even allowed to play the rest of the year. The TRO will only allows Alabama to not be punished, from my understanding of this, to not be punished until that hearing happens. So there's a chance he just plays 1 game.
Is anybody else's head spinning on this? I mean, this is insane.
It absolutely is insane. And the worst part is this is something that the NCAA could have handled a long time ago. A long, long time ago. But they kicked the can down the road for 15, 20 years, maybe longer than that, right? Nobody had any foresight to be able to try to make rules before things eventually got to the Supreme Court and you end up losing. I likened what the NCAA has done in court to being the Washington Generals against the Harlem Globetrotters. It's a guarantee they lose every single time. They might have a case here because the argument that Charles Bediako and his attorney, Darren Heitner, are making is that if he's not allowed to play college basketball, that can do irreparable harm to his way of making money playing basketball, that it's an antitrust violation. I have a hard time finding that you can argue that when you are already under an NBA contract that allows you to eventually make upwards to $2 million, because his current Exhibit 10 deal, which is with the Detroit Pistons, is up to $2 million.
So many questions because, again, it was his mishandling of his career that got him out of college sports, and he went into the NBA draft. Kind of not, to me, not anybody else's problem that he hasn't he's made rosters, but maybe hasn't actively played. Like, I don't know. I think he's trying to hold people hostage. I don't like it. I really don't like this.
I don't either. And like when it comes to like some of the European players, like I kind of get it, right? Because you are allowed before you're 18 to play professionally over there. And when you have two completely different sets of rules, and if you want to come to America to get a college degree and still play, then I have a lot more leeway with that. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to already being in America, signed, in James Najee's case, drafted in the NBA, he just didn't sign his contract, and that was the rationale for allowing him to play at Baylor, was that he just didn't sign the contract. He was drafted. It was part of a trade that brought Karl Anthony Towns to the New York Knicks, but didn't actually sign the contract.
Okay.
So that was kind of like the loophole rationale there. I don't know if Charles Bediako not stepping foot on an NBA floor is an appropriate loophole to get him to be able to play when he has signed 3 different Exhibit 10 contracts.
Well, and he has still gotten to practice and do all the things with the pros. Mm-hmm. So to me, there's kind of an unfair advantage of him being able to go back into college ball.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I don't know if him not being allowed to play college basketball causes quote-unquote irreparable harm to his career.
That doesn't make any sense.
Especially
it's
considering
stepping down.
Yeah, especially considering the thing that has caused irreparable harm to his career is taking bad advice and declaring for the draft early.
Correct.
Because he had his chance. He already foregone his eligibility. He signed that away when he went into the NBA draft.
Yeah. Sorry, the NBA thing maybe isn't working out for you. Maybe work a little harder.
Because there's some development needed, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's a 7-footer, great shot blocker. His offensive game's a little limited. But if you go to the NBA and you're in the G League, you have a chance to be able to develop a little bit, right? And that's the whole point that's the whole reason why some guys do leave college early. Even if they're not going to get drafted, they have an opportunity to develop and then be able to make that money a little bit later because they feel like getting into a G League system, especially if you're drafted by a team that's got good G League coaches, can develop you into being a really good player. But to do that, to sign that away, be gone for 3 basketball seasons.
I mean, that's the other part. This isn't just 1 year. This is 3.
Yeah. It's silly. It's silly. And especially if here's the upside for him. He gets to play for a few games. And then who knows what the eligible, or even just 1 game, and then he can lose in court and then isn't eligible to play. And Alabama's going to fight it tooth and nail every step of the way. And of course, the reason the TRO is granted is because it was a Tuscaloosa judge that did it, which isn't fishy at all. I just have a hard time seeing. Now, I can be wrong. I can very well be wrong here. I haven't been able to talk to a close source who works in this type of thing to tell me if what I think is true, but I have a hard time seeing somebody who has an opportunity to make $2 million a year if he stays on his G League team for 60 days and is good enough to be able to get that 2-way deal, that his career would be irreparably harmed if he's not allowed to go back and play college basketball.
Correct.
And also, he decided to do this late January. School's been in session 1 or 2 weeks now already. So I don't know.
Lots of stink in this thing.
I don't love it. I don't love it at all. And I think for Nate Oates in the middle of the season to be like, hey, I have to go and get somebody that's in the G League right now that's been playing professionally as a grown man for 3 years. It also tells me a little something what he thinks about his basketball team right now too.
I'm just saying, because if you feel like going back to college is going to help your career, things aren't looking real good for you.
Like Nate Oates is a great basketball coach, but I think you have a better chance of developing and making more money in the G League and playing against other pros.
Yeah.
I don't know how it does him any good specifically. And if he wasn't allowed to earn NIL before, is he allowed to do it now? I don't know. It's all one big headache, and it's all one big nasty mess. But coming up next, it's the early game morning meeting. We'll take a look at the SEC men's basketball standings and what can South Carolina do to climb them. We'll discuss next.
Preston here for Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. So if your glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. If it's a cracked windshield, that's no problem. They'll come out to your location and they'll replace it for you, usually for free, and they'll work directly with your insurance to take away the headache. That's right. They'll come out to wherever you are. School, home, work, it does not matter. Absolute Glass will come out to you and take care of the job for you. If you're at home, you're looking to increase the value of your home, you can do that with new windows and mirrors, and Absolute Glass will take care of that for you too. Windows, mirrors, shower enclosures. Say it all the time. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. So check them out online at absoluteglassinc.com. That's online at absoluteglassinc.com.
I-26 westbound before Piney Grove Road do have an accident there. Also, Polo Road near Alpine and Highway 601 at Screaming Eagle Road. That forecast might see a shower today, just a stray shower possible. 60 for the high, 53 tomorrow with more scattered showers. And then Saturday and Sunday, kind of the unknown, maybe some wintry conditions, some rain and sleet possible on Saturday and potentially on Sunday. Right now, 43 on 107.5 The Game.
A whole lot of talk from this show about who is in South Carolina's neighborhood. And, well, I'm ready to take two teams and put them out of the neighborhood. So it's going to shrink it a little bit. However, you look at the SEC standings, there is some chance for upward mobility if they're able to pull off some upsets. We'll take a look at that now for today's morning meeting.
Good morning.
Morning.
Repeat after me. Today will be an awesome day. Let's go. Good morning, great today. Today will be an awesome day. Good morning, great today. Today will be an awesome day.
And it's going to be an awesome day because we're looking at some standings. And we had the Garnet Glasses segment on earlier, where we put on the Garnet Glasses and we looked at the SEC and said, you know what, there's maybe some chance for upward mobility. The Gamecock men's basketball team has played better in the last two games, and I thought they played really well against Oklahoma. Almost pulled out a win at Auburn, really hung in there. But when it comes to the teams that are in the neighborhood, I looked at Mississippi State, LSU, Oklahoma. I put Texas in there, Ole Miss, Missouri, Texas A&M. Well, I'm now here to move Texas A&M up out of there. The U-Haul's not even there anymore because they're already moved up and moved out completely. A&M's actually really good, and that's who you have to play this weekend on the road at 3:30 on Saturday. That's a tough one. They're 5-1 right now. They handled business against Mississippi State last night. Their only loss is a double overtime road loss to Tennessee. Texas A&M's been really good, and first-year head coach Bucky McMillan does have his teams play a style of basketball. It's just genuinely hard to play against. They full court pressure every single possession. They shoot a ton of threes. They play a lot of possessions. They're really fast. They're really deep. They utilize almost every spot on that bench because of just how they play. So they're not really tired of playing that way for 40 minutes in a basketball game. It's tough, and now they're getting the results in conference play. It took them a little while in non-con to kind of get settled, and they didn't look great from November up until early January. But since SEC play started, I feel confident enough to move Texas A&M out of there. And with Texas is 2-4. You're tied with Texas, tied for 12th. There's a big clump of teams that are 2-4 that are tied for 12th. South Carolina, Mississippi State, Texas, and then Tennessee is 2-3. They've just played one fewer game. But Texas, I'm not necessarily completely moving out, but the U-Haul's there, and we're starting to pack some things up. They lost to Kentucky last night, but they have beaten Alabama on the road, and they beat Vanderbilt at home. And I thought, because I watched every play of that Texas-Kentucky game last night, and I thought Texas genuinely looked really good. I can see it now a little bit. They were a little dysfunctional to start the year, but I can see it with Texas. However, there is a pathway to beat them whenever you eventually go to Austin and play. But right now, you still have Mississippi State, LSU, Oklahoma. I'm still keeping Missouri in there. Missouri can beat anybody. They can also lose to anybody. They lost a heartbreaker to Georgia at home, but they have lost games at home. They're incredibly inconsistent. I'm not ready to move Missouri up and out of there yet, but it's still really early in SEC play, and I will be completely transparent here. I don't think this team makes the NCAA tournament. and what you believe that may mean for the future of this coaching staff. One way or another, I think you can't have a year like you did last year, where you went 2-16 in the league and you were one of 2 teams that didn't make the NCAA tournament out of the SEC. Missouri certainly loves company, and you're going to have a lot more company this year.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to be at least a lot more competitive. And I think the way the league is shaping up right now, it can be a lot more competitive. Even though you have Florida coming in this week, what the schedule has right now is going to be really tough. Because I like A&M a lot. I just laid out the reasons why. I think Florida is back. I think they've figured out a lot. But LSU at home, obviously you've beaten them once before. Even with DJ Thomas coming back, I still think you can beat them again at home. Texas on the road. Texas has lost some funky games. One of Texas's SEC losses is to Mississippi State, who I think is maybe the worst team in the SEC right now. Maybe worse than LSU. I watch them, and I'm genuinely not impressed at all with what Mississippi State does. So while A&M and Florida can be losses, you can get back-to-back wins, even 3 wins in a row, because then you play Missouri at home. And Ken Palm even has the Missouri game as a win.
Oh.
So there's a chance for upward mobility here. And when I put the Garnet glasses on, I can certainly see them winning those games if they play like they did Tuesday offensively.
Yeah, because that was a big change.
It was. They were a lot more efficient. And here's the thing, too. They didn't take as many threes, because I think one of the reasons why we've seen them take a lot of threes is because the possessions aren't very good. They milk a lot of clock when it comes to your 30-second shot clock, and they force themselves into either settling or taking really bad shots at the end of the shot clock because they have to, because there's not a lot of movement or not a lot of aggressive driving to the basket to make a defense have to work a little bit. But if they have figured something out, well, watch how I word this. If they have figured something out in regards to what they do without the ball, and Michi plays that aggressive, and Kobe Knox plays that aggressive, because if you get the version of Kobe Knox we saw Tuesday night, your offense will be better. And maybe instead of shooting 35 threes in a game, you shoot 20 to 25, and they're all really good looks. You have a better likelihood of making 40% of them in a game, or even 35%, or even the magical 33% that I have kind of said this year is the goal, to make it to where it's at least a point per shot, right? 50% from 2, 33% from 3. Those are 1 point per shot percentages. But if they're able to do that, LSU is a lot more winnable. Texas is a lot more winnable. Missouri is. You have to play Florida twice this year. You play them again. You play them in Gainesville in mid-February. You have Alabama on the road, too. That's going to be really tough. But Alabama's shown they could lose to anybody. And then you get Mississippi State. Georgia, you played really close, but you have to do that on the road. You get Tennessee at home, and honestly, this Tennessee team's not what it's been the last couple of years. I'm not putting Tennessee in the neighborhood because the ceiling is still really high and they're incredibly talented. They don't have it together offensively at all. And Tennessee's another one of those teams I think can lose to anybody. Then you have Ole Miss, who I definitely think is in your neighborhood, and I've not been impressed with at all either, that you have at the end of the year.
So this is definitely a season where if you're going to try to do well in the SEC, this would be the year to do it, because a lot of the other teams are down.
Get them while they're down, yeah. And I think a fair goal is to not play on the first night of the SEC tournament. And I think that's a very attainable goal, because the first night of the SEC tournament is just, well, it used to be 2 games. Now you have more of a full slate, but maybe there's a day that you don't have to play if you're able to win those games that I mentioned right there, because that could be 6 or 7 wins, and that can be good enough. But I think, if anything, I think the Oklahoma game gave me at least more hope that you could take advantage of another team's defensive deficiencies. And a lot of the teams I mentioned on that list have some defensive deficiencies that you can possibly take advantage of. But it's going to take some luck. It's going to take you building on what you did Tuesday night to actually be able to do that.
And keep the chant going. We're just good enough. We're just good enough.
To give us a little bit of hope here. Coming up next, a big game tonight with the South Carolina women's basketball team. The men played Oklahoma on Tuesday night at CLA. The women are in Norman tonight. It's one of the biggest tests of the year. Not the biggest, but one of the biggest. But it's certainly the biggest test of the year for one South Carolina player. And I'll tell you who that is coming up next here in the early game.
Hey, it's Jen for Carolina Stone Craftsman just outside Columbia in Chapin. You know, they get it. Kitchen and bath projects, they can be a significant investment, but they really do work hard to deliver the highest quality, most affordable granite, marble, and quartz, still providing the best customer service. It's pretty simple. It's great countertops with no compromises. And I'm telling you, you need to visit their showroom to see what they can do for you. Their showroom is absolutely beautiful. They're very good in the educational process. We weren't sure what we needed as far as countertops for a couple of bathrooms that we were redoing. So we sat down and we talked to them, got the ideas of what we were looking for, and they helped us from start to finish for education, installation. Everything was great. So if you're in the market for countertops for your kitchen or bath, do reach out to Carolina Stone Craftsman. Tell them Jen sent you. Family owned and operated just beyond Columbia and Chapin. Beyond your expectations, I assure you. Check them out online, carolinastonecraftsman.com. Still working that earlier tie-up, I-26 westbound before Piney Grove Road. Also on the northeast side, Polo Road near Alpine and Highway 601 at Screaming Eagle Road. Chance for a stray shower today. 60 will be our high, overnight low of 44. Tomorrow, some scattered showers, 53. Then we get to the cooler temperatures and the rain chances and the ice chances, the wintry mix stuff. 39 on Saturday, 38 on Sunday. So we'll be watching that forecast and seeing how things develop. Right now, 43 on 107.5, The Game.
Tonight, South Carolina women's basketball team is going to be in Norman, Oklahoma. They have a big one. And Oklahoma's kind of disappointed. I think they should be better. They're 14-4 overall. Good. 2-3 in the SEC. Not ideal. Now, they did get their butts kicked by LSU at home, 91-72. Before that, they went to Kentucky and got beat. I was surprised to see that, 63-57. And then before that, they lost to Ole Miss, which Ole Miss is a really good team. I think that's maybe one of the dark horses to be a top 4 seed in the SEC. And Ole Miss beat them 74-69. But there's still a lot of high-end talent on this Oklahoma team. Now, their leading scorer is Aaliyah Chavez. She's putting up about almost 19 points a game and over 4 assists. And she was the #1 player coming out of high school for a reason. And I think that's paid pretty early dividends for Oklahoma. But the biggest challenge to me is a player they've had for a couple years now in Reagan Beers, their center. 6'2" center, scoring 16.7 points a game, 11.2 rebounds, over 2 assists. But the one thing she does really well is if she gets the ball in the post, she is going to score it almost automatically. Reagan Beers is making almost 70% of her shots from around the basket. Hard to make her miss. She's got good footwork, great size, hard to knock off the block, and she's in good enough shape to play Oklahoma's fast-paced style. Now, Oklahoma plays almost 80 possessions a game. That is a lot. They will go up and down the floor. They don't shoot as many threes as they normally do because they're not as good of a three-point shooting team, but they do like to get up and down the floor. They like to expand possessions in this game. But there's one player for South Carolina that is the most important player, and that, to me, is going to be Medina Okot. Now, Joyce Edwards is the leading scorer, and she's looked upon to carry a lot of the scoring load. And your guards also do a really good job of running your offense. I like what Tania Latson's done. I'd like to see maybe more of the ball in her hand because she is such a good scorer, and there's a reason she was the leading scorer in all of college basketball last season. But tonight's a big Medina Okot night. And when you watch this game, I think the one thing to watch for is how Medina plays defensively against Reagan Beers, against a center who is of her like. I think Medina is considered one of the best bigs in women's college basketball. Reagan Beers is certainly one of the best bigs in women's college basketball. And the more up and down the list you go of some of the best teams in the sport right now, a lot of them have really good bigs. Audie Crooks at Iowa State, one of those, somebody you might end up seeing in the NCAA tournament. Lauren Betts at UCLA, somebody you might see in the NCAA tournament. This is a good test for Medina in this game because you bring her in to be a shot blocker, to be a reliable post presence, maybe kind of the same way Camila Cardoso was on your undefeated team just a few short years ago. Maybe to be a player that was kind of like Aaliyah Boston, defensive specialist who can get you a lot of points down low too. There have been a lot of really good centers under Dawn Staley at South Carolina. And you bring Medina Okot in from the transfer portal so she can maybe be that, tap into that potential. And she's had a really solid year. But that matchup tonight for me that's going to make or break this game is, can Medina Okot make Reagan Beers not a 70% shooter from around the basket? This game's going to be played a lot in the post because of that. Also, Aaliyah Chavez, as good of a player as she is a great slasher. And I'm excited to talk to Matt Dowell from Watch Fox about this too, because he's been watching a lot of Oklahoma this year. He is an AP poll voter. And as good as Chavez is, she's an average three-point shooter, just a tick under 34%. It's not necessarily her thing. She's not going to go out there and hit a ton of threes in a game. She'll shoot them, but she gets to the basket really well. And if she's able to get to the basket and your guards aren't able to stay in front of her, which that's a big test alone for somebody like Tessa Johnson or Raven or Tania Latson, whoever's going to end up getting the Aaliyah Chavez assignment, the last line of defense is your bigs. Can Medina Okot and Joyce Edwards be able to rotate in adequately and be able to protect the basket against what Oklahoma does? Again, Oklahoma plays incredibly fast. They don't shoot anywhere near as many threes as they have in the past few years. They're going to try to get to the basket a ton. Can your bigs be good enough shot blockers? And even if you don't block the shot, blocking shots isn't the only thing I'll be looking for. Yes, does shot blocking indicate really good rim protection? Absolutely. But can you affect the play every single time Oklahoma gets to the basket. That's the big thing tonight. To me, that's what really this game is going to boil down to. And then when Adele Tack comes in, is she able to protect the basket? Are you going to get those good minutes out of your bench players? If Alicia Tornabes has to play a lot of minutes in this game, can she be effective at protecting the basket? That's a big thing for me tonight in this game. And Oklahoma, as even though they are on a 3-game losing streak, I still see them to be really dangerous in the SEC. You know, we talked about earlier in the last segment that the SEC men's basketball league has not been anywhere near what it was last year. And no one's going to mistake it for being the most dangerous top to bottom in college basketball. SEC women's is a lot different this year. Now, do I think they're going to get 14 teams in the NCAA tournament? No. But are the teams that are in the middle of the pack a lot better than they have been? Yeah. Ole Miss, Kentucky, certainly a lot better. Oklahoma, I would say, coming into the season, I probably had them as about the third best team in the SEC in women's college basketball because they do have a lot of star power. Because they do have Reagan Beers, who not only has played well at Oklahoma, but helped take Oregon State to an Elite Eight where she saw South Carolina, and South Carolina ended their season en route to a national championship. So there's a level of familiarity there that makes this interesting too. But my big thing tonight is if South Carolina wants to be able to win this game and at least give their offense some margin for error, is can you protect the rim? And they've done a really good job of doing that so far this season. If you look at a lot of the numbers in terms of defense, they're number 2, South Carolina is in efficiency. In terms of opponent effective field goal shooting, which I've discussed ad nauseum on the show of how important that is to be able to win basketball games, they're 3rd best in the country. They have the 8th best three-point defense. Teams are only shooting 25% from 3, so I'm not expecting Oklahoma to go out there and just shoot the lights out. But most importantly, teams against South Carolina are only shooting 36% from 2. And I think a lot of that is the size that you're able to present. A lot of that is because Medina Okot's come in and on day 1 been an automatic game changer when it comes to how you play defense. And they're 6th in the country in block percentage. Block almost 16% of their opponent's shots in any given game. That's a lot. Now, your guards help out with that a lot too, but the way Oklahoma is structured, Medina Okot's got to be what she's been all season long for you defensively. And that individual matchup between Beers and Okot's the one thing that makes an intriguing game more intriguing to somebody like me. And if you're able to get that win against Oklahoma, that's another big win that you can notch as a quad 1 win and help really build your case to being one of the top seeds in the NCAA tournament, which I expect them to be at this point because that's the type of program that they are. But coming up next, to round out hour number 2, it's time to put some folks on the grill because there are a couple of college basketball coaches that I think are cooked, and we'll take a look at some people who have been victims of the grill in the NFL and seeing where their landing spots are. We'll break that down coming up next to round out hour number 2 of the early game. Who in sports are cooked this week? The almighty grill has taken some few victims this year. And in the world of college basketball, there are a couple of coaches that I want to put on the grill because I firmly believe that they are cooked. But also, I wanted to take a look at some of the previous grill victims and see if they've gotten back on their feet. But I'll start off with one that we've talked about. We talked about the game a lot because South Carolina won it. But Porter Moser is definitely on the grill, the head coach at Oklahoma. I love Porter Moser. I think he's a really good basketball coach, and I think the coaching job he did at Loyola Chicago to get them to a Final Four is remarkable enough. And then a few years later, get them to the Sweet 16, I think it's remarkable. It's hard to do that in the mid-majors, is build a program that, A, can get to a Final Four, that wins a tough league. Like when they were in the Missouri Valley, they were constantly winning that league. And then to get them to a second weekend is really tough to do. And I thought Oklahoma did the right thing in hiring him. However, there is no shame to put a hand up and say, hey, well, it just didn't work out. We thought this would work out. It's not working out. Because they're 1-5 in the SEC right now. The way the team has been built this year, despite the money they did allocate to basketball, and they were very active in the transfer portal, they got a lot of pieces that didn't fit. And that's why they're not very good defensively, right? Nobody's going to confuse even some of the Loyola Chicago teams under Porter Moser that were really successful as being, the 2004 Pistons in terms of being really good defensively. But they're always good enough offensively to kind of make up for it. This Oklahoma team's not that. It's a little clunky. It's not really working out. They underachieved a little bit last year despite having a really good roster. Porter Moser's a really good coach. He's probably just best suited somewhere else. I'm putting Porter Moser on the grill. Didn't think that one would be as hard to say. But another one, and this is the first time I think I'm putting somebody on the grill after a win. It's UCLA head coach Mick Cronin. Because the good news is they had a home game, and they beat Purdue, who's a top 5 team in the country, a team that was picked to win the Big Ten. And what did he want to talk about after the game? This is what he had to say as soon as they beat number 4 Purdue.
And I want to thank the Big Ten for giving us 5 of our first 7 on the road, bringing Purdue here on Thursday night, where we don't get back in LA till Saturday night, and giving us the team pick to win the league on a 2 days rest after 5 of our first 7 on the road. I want to thank the Big Ten for that.
So are he and Vic Schaefer like good friends or something? Because
soulmates.
Seriously. Wine.
He wanted to complain.
Oh my gosh. After a win. Okay.
Not, hell of a win by our team. We just beat the best team in the Big Ten. We kept the one of the best players, the best point guard in America in check in Braden Smith. No, didn't want to do that. Didn't want to give his team credit. Not the first thing that came to mind.
No.
He said, I'm going to go to that podium and I'm going to complain. Now, are there valid complaints? Yes, UCLA shouldn't be in the Big Ten. They shouldn't, because in sports like basketball, baseball, literally any sport that's not football, it doesn't make sense. It makes scheduling significantly harder when it comes to conference play. It's expensive.
Yep.
That's the one thing when all that conference realignment happened, my first question was, okay, is UCLA and Southern Cal and Oregon and Washington going to be really cool with sending the softball team to Piscataway, New Jersey for a conference series or conference games and other sports that aren't football? No. That's expensive. That adds up.
Yep.
Yes, you get more money in revenue when it comes to the TV deal, but then it makes you have to spend recklessly elsewhere. Like, those are valid complaints. And nobody's going to be traveling in college basketball quite like UCLA, Southern Cal, Washington, and Oregon. But the reason he's cooked is if that's what you're talking about after a win, clearly, which nobody else is necessarily complaining as loudly, like Eric Musselman at Southern Cal is not doing it, Dana Altman at Oregon's not doing it. I think the job security for Mick Cronin is starting to slip a little bit because they've underachieved a little bit too. They spent as much money as anybody in this offseason in college basketball. And it's kind of been a little disappointing, despite getting that win, which I think might save their season by beating Purdue the other night. Mm-hmm. That's the first thing he's talking about. That's a sign of somebody that's cooked. Is he on the grill and actively cooking? No, but I think there is a little bit of thawing that's going on with Mick Cronin at the moment. And then in terms of guys who have been on our grill, are victims of the grill this year, Mike McDaniel's the one that I wanted to highlight here because he did get hired as the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers, which I think is a good fit for him. He's one of those guys, too. I love Mike McDaniel. He's easy to pick on because of the capris, because he does, come off as really dorky.
Yes.
And sometimes be a little indifferent. And I think he's the only coach in NFL history that hit a vape on the sidelines. But
dude, wow.
That was a thing.
Wow, I missed that
thing. But he is a really good offensive mind. I thought he was one of the better offensive coordinators in the NFL when he was with San Francisco. And, of course, it helps to be working with Kyle Shanahan in that regard. Mm-hmm. But I think he's a guy, if you just let him focus on the offense, he'll be fine. And sometimes if you're a team like the Chargers, one of the best things you can do is take one of the head coaches on the grill and maybe not make them your head coach, but put them in a position where they can succeed a little bit. And I think that's where Mike McDaniel is. 2 hours down, 1 to go. The early game, third and long hours coming up next. Noah Chass from ABC Columbia joins me in studio.
It's cold outside, and it would be not a great time for your HVAC system to be working. That's why you need to call the folks at AAA Heating and Air. Days like today are the days where you don't have to worry about your system conking out or failing you. You can be thankful that you rely on the services of AAA Heating and Air, and you can rely on them for 15 years, which is part of a 15-year parts and labor guarantee. 15 years, that's a long-term peace of mind for your building, your staff, and the people that you serve. AAA Heating and Air specializes in helping small businesses and light commercial spaces stay comfortable year-round with local experts that you can trust. Getting started is easy. Just call them at AAA Heating and Air for a quote, or visit or call AAAtoday.com. And when you call them, tell them that Preston from the 107.5 The Game sent you. Again, that's AAA Heating and Air. Comfort you can count on.
Harbison Boulevard at Bauer Parkway, an accident reported there. Also, I-20 eastbound at Sunset Boulevard. Polo at Alpine and Highway 601 at Screaming Eagle Road. Still working on getting those incidences cleared. 60 for the high today. Maybe just a pop-up shower here or there. 53 tomorrow, increase in that shower activity. And then come this weekend, we do have the wintry weather mixes. Just still not sure how it's all going to play out, but potentially rain and sleet on Saturday. Some ice and rain on Sunday. Highs 39, 38, somewhere in there. Overnight lows will be problematic. 43 right now.
The early game, third and long hour starts right now. I'm Elijah Campbell. She is Jen Jensen. He is Noah Chass from ABC Columbia joining me for the third and final hour. Of course, our man Randy Young, our engineer, and Rachel in the video production studio here at Studio 803, all in the house. But Noah, appreciate you taking the time to come hang out. Even though your Eagles are eliminated from the playoffs, there's still plenty to talk about here.
I don't even know why you had to bring that up. I mean, who's even watching the NFL playoffs at this point? Anyone?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that was a tough. Well, any Eagles fan knew that's how things were going to end. That team was never going to thrive offensively. So to have the Niners put us out of our misery was fine. I wish it wasn't the Niners because that team, we know, had their own deficiencies. So,
Yes.
But I think there's more enjoyable teams to watch right now in each championship game. So
You were ahead of the curve a little bit, though.
Oh, yeah.
Because the last time we had you in here, you whipped out the stat that the Eagles were historically bad when it came to 3 and outs.
yeah,
And that was one I didn't realize they were that bad when it came to 3 and outs, but that was like kind of my first eye-opening, like, oh, maybe the ceiling is pretty limited on this bunch this year.
people like to give Philly and Eagles fans like a lot of crap for, turning against their team too early, but we just know ball. And any real fan by like week 3 was like, hey, this offense has issues. They
Yeah.
can't convert on third and long. They can't convert on third and short. They can't run the ball. The O-line's banged up. Like, they don't pass over the middle. Like, there's no creativity. Like, we saw it early in the season, and everyone said, oh, you're the reigning Super Bowl champs. You'll be fine. It's like, well, we won't. And now we're no longer the reigning Super Bowl champs, or at least in a couple weeks we won't be. So the writing was on the wall, for sure.
I have a Nick Sirianni take.
Okay.
I've been kind of crafting and formulating. An okay coach, he's fine. But when things get bad and adversity hits, he completely forgets how to hold a locker room together or effectively do his job. There might not be a coach worse in adverse situations than Nick Sirianni, because the 2 years they went to a Super Bowl, they didn't really face a ton of adversity in those seasons. They were all pretty smooth sailing. 2 years ago, when they got smacked by the Buccaneers, there was a little bit of turmoil, a little bit of dysfunction. It kind of fell apart in the last 6 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
This year, A.J. Brown did the A.J. Brown thing, and the offense struggled, and they never found a way to kind of get it to where it needed to be.
I'll push back a little bit. Last year, there was some dysfunction. There was early A.J. Brown murmurings, early pass game frustrations, but kind of winning solved all of that. So that has happened
It
before.
helped, yeah.
But Nick Sirianni's a complicated case because he's a winner. The guy wins. He's had one of the most successful head coaching records in his first 5-6 years, so you can't dispute that. But then there's so much drama, and then every time an offensive coordinator as well, he leaves, and when there's a bad offensive coordinator, the offense is bad. So it's sort of like, what is your role here in leading this team? He's won a Super Bowl. I can't question him, or I can question him, but not too hard.
Right. He'll always have that type of validation. When you win a
Sure.
Super Bowl, there's an element of validation there. But the big thing that I want to touch on here in this segment relates to what I opened the show with earlier, and it was a poll question that we had on our Twitter page at 1075 The Game. Does Indiana winning the national title give you hope that the Gamecocks can one day do the same thing? 52.6% of the voters said no. 47.4% said yes. And I talked about this morning how if I'm a Gamecock fan, it does give me a little bit of hope if you focus on the right things. Like, I think what Indiana did this year in terms of having that magical turnaround and it culminating in a season that was 16-0, winning a national championship, there are a lot of things that have to go right from a football sense, but a lot of what feels like simple stuff, like don't beat yourself. They were bottom 5 in turnovers committed this year. They are really good at assignment football. Their wide receivers and perimeter players love to block. They don't turn the ball over. They lost one fumble on the first drive of the year and didn't lose one the rest of the season.
Yeah.
They just didn't beat themselves. They were fundamentally sound. And that, I think, alone sets your floor of being like 8-4 in a season. And they were able to, have a Heisman-winning quarterback, which helps take you to the next level. And that helps. But I watched Indiana play, and nothing they do schematically, wows me. Nothing that they do from just a strategy standpoint wows me. They play pretty safe. But the reason I think it would give me hope is that you do have maybe some things that they have and more, like financial backing, fan support. They didn't have the fan support until they started winning.
Not initially, no.
But you have a lot of things in place that if you take care of the things the way they did, should at least raise what your floor is. And what we saw this year of this team being 4-8 shouldn't happen if you do some of those fundamental things better.
So I think the key word in that poll question is hope. Should it give you hope that they can do the same thing? Absolutely, right? Indiana proved that in the modern college football world, it's basically logoless and brandless, right? It doesn't matter what your history is. It doesn't matter, what's on the side of your helmet. If you have a good team, you're well coached, you can go win the modern national championship. So hope? Absolutely. South Carolina, every fan base in the country that wasn't irrational already should now be even more irrational
Right.
that they can win the national championship. Now, from a more sort of specific team-oriented lens, it depends how you view the South Carolina teams. I think this Indiana team had 3 things, among others, that were great for them. One, they had a talented roster that was overlooked, but they found in the transfer portal, they found production. That's something Shane Beamer can do and has done, and we'll see if he does it this year with the portal class he hauled in. 2, they had a head coach that coached a disciplined team. Like you said, they don't make mistakes. That was Kurt Signetti. Google him. He wins. He's won everywhere he goes. So a winning head coach. South Carolina fan, do you view Shane Beamer as that? He's won a good amount. He's had some rough seasons where he hasn't won a lot. Do you view him as someone who will lead this team to be a winning program and be a disciplined program? And then number 3, they hit on a Heisman quarterback, right? We can't forget
splash,
that, right? While they don't have the most 4 or 5-star recruits or players on that team, they had a quarterback who won the Heisman for a reason. He's a Heisman-level, number 1 overall draft pick type quarterback. Do you envision Lenore Sellers being that? A year ago, everyone would say, yeah, absolutely. After this year, it's up in the air. So I think if you view those things in the same way Indiana had it, then yes, if I was a South Carolina fan, I would be optimistic, but it depends how you view those 3 elements.
And when it comes to number 2, in terms of being, I think that, to me, that's the biggest one, because it wasn't like you were out-talented in every game that you played.
No.
You had an incredibly talented roster. That's clearly why they were the number 15 team in the country at the start of the season. And after you beat Virginia Tech, you got yourself in the top 10 because a lot of people bought in on what their talent was. But how many games did we see this year where you essentially beat yourself? When another team was beating themselves, you decided to join the beat yourself party and RSVP'd maybe a little too quick to said party. Like the LSU game, to me, when I remember the 2025 season, the LSU game specifically sticks out the most because, A, that was my first real trouble that, maybe the issues here are a little steeper than I might have anticipated. But that was a game where it was the anti-2025 Indiana. You committed a ton of penalties on offense. You were able to make plays and keep yourself in it, but then you couldn't take advantage of it because your offensive line couldn't block, and Lenoris ran for his life. And because of that, you ended up beating yourself a little bit. First play of the game, you fumble the snap from under center. When you've only ran a handful of plays under center all season long leading up to that, it's just another element of beating yourself. If you can eliminate things like that, which this team seemingly did wrong a lot during the season, I'm not saying you're going 16-0 and winning a national championship, but we're certainly having significantly different conversations at this point in the offseason than we would have if you did take care of those.
I think that's the biggest thing. With that Indiana team, you could rely on and know that they're not going to make mistakes. They're going to do every little thing correct, and they might not have the most talent or the most production, but they will play a clean football game, and then the big plays, the splash plays happen. South Carolina, we saw the splash plays last year in moments, but it was that discipline. It was holding on to the ball. It was not having a false start or a hold or some sort of penalty to sort of derail everything they were doing. And so Can they fix that with a not whole new, but a large new crop, especially an entirely new offensive line?
Yeah,
And
brand new.
Can that all be fixed? And then the talent will show itself out at some point. That's the biggest question, to see if you can have a Indiana type run. I guess like the positive though is, South Carolina, they're not coming from a pre-Kurt Signetti Indiana standpoint, right? This program's had success in the past. They've had talent. They've had the fan base support. So it's not like they're climbing the mountains that Indiana had to climb. They just need to get to the final sort of ascension point.
And I think one thing that would make me feel good and have hope too, in terms of having certain foundational pieces together to try to get this thing turned around, is I do have a high confidence in somebody like Jeremiah Donati as an AD because of what his track record is as an athletic director. Like TCU, when he was there, had nowhere near the same type of turnaround, but reached a height that maybe TCU fans, maybe your most optimistic TCU fans, didn't think they would have. Donati had to make a head coaching hire with getting Sonny Dykes, and it paid immediate dividends, and they'd go to a 14 college football playoff. They go to the national championship game. What happened in that national championship game to me is completely irrelevant because you ran into a buzzsaw.
Yeah, that was Max Duggan, right?
That was Max Duggan, yeah. Max Duggan finished second in Heisman voting that year.
Yes, he did.
Which another reason, back to your point number 3 of having that guy at quarterback, helps out a ton if you're able to have that type of guy to reach those levels of heights. But those are heights that TCU fans maybe 15 years prior to that, when they're playing good football in Conference USA and then the Mountain West, maybe wouldn't have envisioned. But in modern college football, I think it opens up the door to where those type of programs that maybe don't have that level of pedigree, like your Alabamas, Georgias, Ohio States, Oklahomas, have a chance to be able to be players in this national conversation, just because the teams that were those programs that I mentioned maybe don't have the same depth because of player movement, that certain schools that maybe have some good financial backing are able to just add more than what they previously would have in other areas. That is what would give me the hope, the key word of hope, that South Carolina can turn it around to where you can get back into that 9-10 win conversation. Because if you get into this whole bracket, anything's possible. If Miami taught you anything, it's that anything's possible if you're able to just get in.
You just got to get in. And even Miami, they weren't the most disciplined team this year, but they had the talent sort of similar to a South Carolina type build, and they had that sort of SEC type offensive and defensive line, and they found their way in and snuck in as the 10 seed, and then here they go. And who knows if it'll even be 12 or 16 teams or 24 teams next year, but you just got to get it. I know. That Big Ten proposal was.
We get 24 teams in this, but we keep a similar type of schedule structure. We might end this thing in mid-February. The Super Bowl might be played the national championship game might be played the day after the Super Bowl. You never know.
It's already been too late. I'm sure you've touched on this, but it's like I forgot the college football season was going on until the national championship game on Monday.
Yeah, because this is year number 2 of this, and it still felt weird. I know last year I was like, okay, maybe it just feels weird because this is the first of this type of format. Maybe I'll grow into having maybe a normalized feel of a national championship game happening on Martin Luther King Day. But this year it still felt weird. I don't think it lost its juice necessarily because there were so many storylines in this game that got me intrigued by it, but it still feels so foreign to have this thing so late in January.
It felt like an out-of-season game. Because of the storylines, there was still interest, and of course I watched and everyone watched, but South Carolina, they didn't make a bowl game this year. They played their last game 2 months before that national championship game. Same with a lot of teams that weren't in the postseason. That's crazy. That's so much time between the regular season ending and then the national championship game. I know it's scheduled to be even later next year, just based on how the schedule's shaping out. It was a great game. I had a ton of fun watching it. Indiana's an awesome story. Miami was a fun story. Just do it earlier. Just move it all up. Push it all up. I don't know how you got to do it, but make it make sense.
You could always just start the season a week earlier.
You mean make week 0 actually week 1?
Yes, absolutely.
Why do you even call it week 0?
At that point, also, my boy Justin Hall and I on the High School Football Scoreboard Show have had a crusade against the term week 0.
It's like this little inside joke we all do, we're in week 0. But the games count. They're playing. It is the first week of games. That would make it week number 1.
It's not the 0th week of games. Right. The 0th week is not a thing. That's not how numbers work.
It's not preseason. These games count, so it's week 1. So they can move the college football season up, and everyone starts week 0. And then I think we'll probably have a -1 or an even further back week 0 because if we move everything else back. But I don't know. They got to figure that out.
But coming up next, we talked about the Indiana story being a good one. If a certain team has a backup quarterback who has not thrown a pass since 2023, lead them to a Super Bowl, that too would be a really good story. But do we actually believe that's going to happen?
Stidham time.
Noah and I are going to discuss that coming up next here in the early game.
All right. Big football weekend. You may have missed it because you didn't call the folks from Integrated Media. You could have missed games going into overtime, a national championship, but that's okay because you still have things to look forward to. The big game, the basketball tournament, all types of things will be happening, but you need to call the folks from Integrated Media now. And you can get your outdoor setup ready because the spring and the summer are on their way. Samsung Terrace TVs that are waterproof, Sonos speakers that work outdoors, Wi-Fi that works indoors and outdoors so you can have all your devices playing at the same time. So this past weekend, you could have been watching the NFL playoffs while also watching men's basketball and figuring out what you need to do with each of those without any lag time and could have had all your screens running if you call the folks from Integrated Media. So call Nathan and Michael at 803-948-8327. That's 803-948-8327. Or reach them online at integratedmediainc.com.
Still working an earlier slowdown Harbison Boulevard at Bauer Parkway. And if you're cruising on I-20 eastbound right there at Sunset Boulevard, exit 61, we have a report of an accident there. And that forecast, at least for the next day or so, isn't too ominous. 60 for the high today. Might see a stray shower popping in. Tomorrow, increased shower activity, 53 for the high. And then that's after that, Saturday and Sunday, going to be a little bit different story. Some rain and sleet possibly in the forecast on Saturday and Sunday. Right now, it's overcast, and it's 43 on 107.5 The Game.
Well, Indiana doesn't have to be the only great story in sports because there's a potential of an equally great feel-good story. Team goes to the AFC Championship game. They're 4 quarters away from a trip to the Super Bowl, but starting quarterback Bo Nix gets hurt and breaks his ankle on like the third to last play of the game. And now they have to rely on some fella named Jarrett Stidham, who has not thrown a pass in the National Football League since 2023. It would be remarkable. It would be Nick Foles-esque if he were to have pulled this off. It would be a really cool story if they were able to go to the Super Bowl or even win it with a backup quarterback. Those are the type of stories in sports that I think we all kind of live for. However, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I hate to be the football Grinch. I don't think that happens at all. I don't think it has a shot of even happening. Would like to be wrong, but as Noah Chast from ABC Columbia is here with me, also Eagles fan, very much alive for watching Nick Foles do what he did in a Super Bowl against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. I don't know if you share the same pessimism I do, but that Patriots defense looked really good. It has looked really good. They gave up only 3 points to the Chargers. They made C.J. Stroud look like one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't know how Jarrett Stidham survives Sunday.
Yeah, Stidham, he's got his work cut out for him. I have seen, and we have seen this happen, Nick Foles, backup quarterback, taking down the Patriots in an all-time game. I just want to read the stats real quick of Nick Foles' generational playoff run.
Yes.
Divisional round against the Falcons, 246 yards, 76% completion percentage.
Pretty good.
NFC Championship, 352 yards, 78% completion percentage. And then in the Super Bowl, 373 yards out, he didn't outplay Tom Brady. Tom Brady had like 500 passing yards, but they won the game.
Right. Ironically, Tom Brady throws for 500 yards and loses despite what he did earlier in his career when he had his first Super Bowl. I think he won with like 140 yards passing.
Right. So it's something like this is possible. The caveat here with Nick Foles, he had a ton more experience already. He was a starter with the Eagles. On a prior stint, he'd started other places. And even in that season, he played, I believe, 2 or 3 regular season games to end the stretch, divisional round, NFC Championship, Super Bowl. So Jarrett Stidham coming in cold off the bench, having not thrown a pass in, what'd you say, was it a year, 2 years?
Since 2023, I think, was the last time he threw a pass in the NFL.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. And you said that Patriots defense, they looked nasty last weekend. Some of that, I think, is C.J. Stroud's regression. They didn't have Nico Collins. They didn't have Dalton Schultz. They didn't have one of their right guards. So that offense was not humming on all cylinders. So that kind of leans into the Patriots' favor. But the Broncos, Jarrett Stidham, it's not the most encouraging. I do have one encouraging fun fact about Jarrett Stidham that might rile you up.
Oh,
it has nothing to do with football.
Fact.
One of his child's name is Madden Thaddeus Stidham.
What a name.
That's a great name.
Thaddeus Stidham.
That might be a good enough name to make me believe in Jarrett Stidham. But otherwise,
his naming abilities.
But otherwise, that's the only thing I have for you Broncos fans. I don't know.
I mean, I guess the pathway is if he can get to 150 yards passing, to where you're at least moving the ball well enough where you can't just stack the box every play, and you're running the ball incredibly well. And it's not like the Broncos can't run the ball well. I mean, they're a reasonably good running team, and you do have a good play caller in Sean Payton, who I think if we're ranking play callers in the NFL and play callers I trust in a big game, I trust Sean Payton to be able to at least figure out a game plan that makes Jarrett Stidham comfortable. But against a Mike Vrabel coach defense, I don't know if that defense will allow him to be comfortable at any point in the game.
Yeah, and I think what you need to see from this Broncos team, and I think Sean Payton, like you said, is the coach to make that happen, is to simplify the game. The problem with that C.J. Stroud Texans game is there was so many turnovers, right? They just kept giving the ball back to New England. The Broncos have a strong enough defense who forces the ball away enough themselves that if Stidham can be the game manager of all game managers, hand the ball off, go to your checkdowns, protect the ball, take a sack if you need to, don't give the ball away, and let your defense take care of it. That's their recipe for success. And let the defense do what they do. And on the other side, New England, Drake May, the most fumbles from any quarterback in the league. So that's your recipe. If you can say, hey, Jared, just don't give away the ball, do the minimal amount you can, and just manage the game. Defense, go eat, try and force that ball away. That's how things all of a sudden flip. You get one strip sack, short field, get an easy touchdown, all of a sudden you're up 7-3 in this game. Things are different.
Yep. Would it surprise you if I told you that Drake May had a worse QBR in that game than C.J. Stroud did?
It would surprise me a little because C.J. Stroud was tough to watch.
It was atrocious.
But he wasn't great, and the New England offense wasn't great either in that game. Now, a lot of that I give credit to the Texans defense because that is a nasty defense.
That's one of the nastiest defenses I've ever seen. But Drake May did fumble the ball, I think, 3 times, and he threw 1 pick.
Yep.
And in that game, too, really the big difference was Drake May did make 3 incredible throws in that game when his team really needed it. Those touchdown passes were all dimes. And I think that was really kind of the big difference maker is just one quarterback actually made plays. The other one turned the ball over too, but didn't make any plays. And it's amazing how sometimes that could be the fine line between winning or losing in that game. But I think the one thing that we're really robbed of, though, is not just a really good game. Because if Bo Nix was starting for the Broncos, I think this would genuinely be a really good game and one in which I'd probably favor the Broncos. But it's the fact that we don't get this whole necessary crowning of that 2024 quarterback draft class.
Right.
Because he had 5 or 6 players, quarterbacks, taken in that first round. And now 4 of them have at least taken their teams to the divisional round of the playoffs, with Jaden Daniels playing in the NFC Championship game last year with Washington.
Right.
Bo Nix leading the Broncos to an AFC title game in year 2. Drake May leading the Patriots to an AFC title game in year 2. And Caleb Williams being an overtime period away from taking the Bears to an NFC title game in year 2. 4 of those guys have at least taken their franchises to the divisional round of the playoffs. But if we had Bo Nix, it'd be 2 of those guys from that same draft class together, and we'd start having what I would consider a pretty cool budding rivalry with some of those guys in that draft classes, draft class specifically, and they'll forever be linked. And we kind of got robbed of having that first matchup between the two.
Yeah, it would have been fun to see Nix and Drake May in that draft class, like you said. It'll be fun to kind of see how over time, and I think it might be a year-to-year thing, how we everyone loves to do the redraft. Oh, here's the redraft for this year.
Yeah, I
that
love redrafts.
top 3, and I don't remember where Nix was drafted, but the whole first round class, where are we putting those as we look back now with Drake May, with Jaden Daniels, with Caleb Williams after last year? Everyone thought Caleb was a bust, and that was a terrible draft pick, and Jaden was clearly the number 1. Now maybe Drake was the best guy, or Caleb's the most special. And Bo Nix has been so consistent.
Yeah.
It is very unfortunate we don't get to see them on the highest stage, but the same with Drake May. Before that injury, we saw Bo Nix make the big throws when he had to in that game against the Bills. When they were trailing late in the game, he had those touchdown passes. Do I wish he could have had the chance to make some of those passes and not let the refs decide that game later? I do wish that.
54 yards of penalties on one overtime drive makes it a little anticlimactic.
Yeah, but I think Bo Nix has that capability where if they didn't get those calls, he would have made a big throw to get them in the range they needed to be in, because he's shown it before, and so is Drake May, and we're getting robbed of seeing them late in the game, AFC Championship, Super Bowl trip on the line, who's going to make that big throw. So that is unfortunate. But can you, and it's a big ask, can you ask Stidham to make one big throw? Maybe 2, 1.5, whatever you ask. That was the thing with that Nick Foles run is, while he had great numbers, he made the big plays when it mattered, when no one expected him to. The flea flicker against Minnesota in the NFC Championship game. That big throw over the middle to Zach Ertz in the Super Bowl. The throw to Corey Clement. It was Nick Foles, a guy you wouldn't expect to even be consistent, let alone make the heroic plays, making heroic plays when you needed him. And can you ask Jarrett Stidham, who, he is a professional quarterback, right?
Yes.
He's a professional athlete.
Too.
That's what he's here to do. Make one when it matters. It's a big ask. That's what you need.
Yeah, and maybe he doesn't have to do the Nick Foles thing where he's asked to make one catch too, but it would be kind of funny if they pulled that out.
I want to put past Sean Payton, getting a little cheeky with it. I don't know. Why not?
Sean Payton's always one of those guys has something up his sleeve.
If you're Sean Payton, if you're a Broncos fan, with Stidham and no Knicks, do you think like you're playing with house money, or do you think like we're got to do whatever it takes to win because this could be our only chance? You never know.
Yeah, I feel like for me it'd be a house money type thing. But tonight in Norman, Oklahoma, I wouldn't say South Carolina's playing with house money, but they're playing with a big opportunity to make a statement win in the SEC. Matt Dowell from Watch Fox will join us to talk about that next. Now, the Denver Broncos have something to worry about this weekend with having to start a backup quarterback in an AFC championship game. That's a pretty big problem. But if any of them had issues with other things like, I don't know, income or business tax issues, I would tell them to go to the Ecton Law Firm. Now, John Ecton and his team are great at solving these type of IRS maze situations. Maybe not great for helping your backup quarterback, but this is their level of expertise where they have helped thousands of families and businesses just like yours escape that IRS maze. 803-771-9800. That is the number to call to set up a free consultation with John and his team over at the Ecton Law Firm. Set up that free consultation. Formulate a game plan where you guys can attack those issues at the source. Again, 803-771-9800 is the number to call to take that first step to a worry-free life, or you can always hit them up online too at ectonlawfirm.com. That's ECTONlawfirm.com.
Harbison Boulevard at Bauer Parkway still working that earlier slowdown. Also I-20 eastbound after Sunset Boulevard. That's exit 61. And I-20 westbound at Clemson Road, also an accident. A couple stray showers today are expected. Scattered showers tomorrow. Today's high 60, 53 tomorrow. Wintry mixes coming in for the weekend. Right now, though, it's cloudy and 43.
Tonight in Norman, Oklahoma, the South Carolina Gamecocks are taking on the Oklahoma Sooners. Dawn Staley and her team, fresh off of a blowout road win against Coppin State and a home win against Texas, is going to take on what I think is one of the better teams in the SEC. And here joining myself and Noah Chass from ABC Columbia is Matt Dowell from Watch Fox. We were almost trying to collect all of the television infinity stones here on the program today. Matt joins us right now, who not only covers the South Carolina Gamecocks, but is an AP poll voter for women's basketball. So if you're mad at rankings, you can just blame Matt. But Matt, appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us this morning.
What's up, guys? Hey, Elijah. No, I didn't know you were going to be on this morning. What's up, man?
What's up, man? It's the first time we're like on the airwaves together. What a unique crossover, man. Good to hear from you.
I know. Usually we're fierce competition against each other. Now we can be friends finally.
I know. Look at that. I can say honestly, Matt does know ball. So his and you have one of the best. The thing that Jared shares, like AP voter scores out there. So don't slander his name.
Yeah, I enjoy doing that. You know, it's intense. I take about an hour and a half every Sunday night to do my ranking. So I do my best to get in depth and put everybody where I think they should go. And right now, South Carolina definitely number 2. Oklahoma, though, a lot of question marks surrounding them. So I'm very interested in the game tonight.
Yeah, Oklahoma number 16 in the aforementioned AP poll. And this is a team, though, like they're ranked number 16, rightfully so, because they're on a 3-game losing streak. I think at their best, they're a top 10 team because I love the talent that they have. I love the way the roster's built. Obviously, Aaliyah Chavez, really good player. Reagan Beers, very experienced and obviously one of the go-to offensive options on this team. But, Matt, when you've watched them and you've kept up with them, what's maybe the one thing that has made this team lose 3 in a row and gone from maybe preseason SEC contender to sitting at 2-3, having to play the Gamecocks coming up tonight?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about this Oklahoma team is on paper, they have an elite roster. You would think, I mean, at one point they were in the top 5 just a couple weeks ago, actually. And I think we all thought, okay, this is a team that could be a Final Four, team contender for maybe to be in the Final Four. I don't know if I really consider them national championship contenders, but they have so much talent on their roster. But then they're really struggling as of recent. And when I watch them, they just look very disorganized. They look a bit chaotic. They don't really look like they are in sync with each other. It's a lot of turnovers, but also Oklahoma plays a very fast-paced style. They're going to want to shoot a ton of threes, and you're going to see that tonight. And so I think that when they're playing and the style of play, they cause a lot of turnovers because they're playing a lot of teams that are very disciplined. I mean, Ole Miss, coached by Coach Yo. You have Kentucky, Kenny Brooks as head coach, LSU coached by Tim Mulkey. All 3 of those teams play very disciplined basketball. And so I think Oklahoma is struggling just to kind of keep up with those teams in that aspect of it. And SEC, the defense is so good. And I don't know if I consider Oklahoma a defensive team. They're just very, very much on offense. And so I think that is where they're struggling, and they have to figure that out. And I also think that's one reason why even last season they struggled against South Carolina so much specifically. I mean, South Carolina beat them by 41 in the regular season last year and then by 18 in the semifinals of the SEC tournament. And I think that they have to figure out how to kind of counteract those teams that play very good defense in a way that also complements their offense, because when Oklahoma gets hot from 3, they are in every single game. They're never really out of the game because of that, but I think that's where the struggles are coming at the moment, is they're coming up against these teams that just lock down on defense and are taking care of the basketball. and that's why Oklahoma's losing some of these games. But I've been very surprised by their recent struggles. But they have also been losing to very good teams. You know, they're not losing to nobodies. They're losing to other top-tier SEC teams. But Oklahoma also, on their resume, doesn't really have a signature win yet this season. All of their big games this season, UCLA, Ole Miss, Kentucky, LSU, they've been on the losing end of those. So it's been a strange season for Oklahoma, but that's kind of what I'm seeing in these past couple of weeks specifically.
And when it came for me to watch, to look at this matchup really closely, I think I identified for myself that Medina Okot is the most important player for South Carolina because I think South Carolina is going to be able to score the adequate amount of points that should win this game. But I agree with you. Offensively is where Oklahoma's ceiling kind of is, where they can reach that. But a lot of that does come from, can you keep Reagan Beers from making 70% of her shots from around the basket because she's going to get ample opportunity to score.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the games why you bring in a Medina Okot to be a shot blocker, a rim protector. Do you find her to maybe be, I guess, a kind of similar ilk in terms of being the most important player for South Carolina in this game?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say she's going to be a big part of it because Reagan Beers is really, really good, and they obviously played her last year. She was also at Oregon State when they played in the Elite Eight 2 years ago during that undefeated season. So South Carolina has seen her a few times now, but she's a very physical player, and, she goes blow for blow in the post. I mean, she's really, really physical. So South Carolina is going to have to be prepared to match her physically. And LSU did a good job on Sunday of getting her in foul trouble. They really took her out of the first half. So I wonder if that's going to be part of the strategy tonight for South Carolina, because outside of Reagan Beers, the post is very thin for Oklahoma. They're very guard heavy. But for Medina Okot, she's someone that I think can match Reagan Beers physically. She's really, really strong. And obviously she rebounds the ball very, very well. And she is South Carolina's biggest presence when it comes to that aspect of the game, when it comes to rebounding. So, there's going to be a lot of chances because of the way Oklahoma shoots the ball. They take a lot of shots. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for offensive and defensive rebounds. And South Carolina's got to try and win that battle. But I can see Medina playing a big part tonight because outside of Reagan Beers, they don't have a ton of height. So is this an opportunity for Medina to have a really, really good game? We'll see, but I'm excited to see that matchup and also to see how Joyce kind of takes on this matchup because, we got to talk to her yesterday and she was talking about facing Reagan Beers as well. So, yeah, I'm interested to see Medina kind of take her game to another level in SEC play specifically.
And, Matt, I want to chime in there. I don't know if you remember, and I think it was last year in the SEC tournament that it was Miriam Dowder who ended up being sort of the Reagan Beers stopper. Now she hasn't had the season that she's wanted. Can you see maybe if Okot or Joyce are struggling to slow her down if Dawn pulls the Miriam Dowda card?
Oh, absolutely. I think for sure. And Dawn said yesterday that they've got 5 post players, and all of them are going to see minutes today. So Reagan Beers is going to see a lot of different style of players today. They're going to throw a lot at her. And so when you think of Oklahoma side, Reagan Beers really has the tough assignment. It's really her against 5, today, and she's going to have to adjust. But Miriam played such a good game last year in the SEC semifinals. She's just someone, she's very athletic, she has a lot of length, and she's very agile. So I think against post players that maybe don't move as well, Reagan Beers is really strong and is a great player, but I don't consider her to be a great mover specifically. I think Miriam really thrives in those matchups because she can use her length, she can use her athleticism to really throw them off and play such good defense. And so I'm excited to see if Miriam gets some good minutes tonight and how she does defensively specifically, because she gave Reagan Beers all kinds of problems last season, and I actually think that that was probably her best performance of the season, just looking at it from a defense perspective. Maybe this is going to be a Miriam Dowda breakout game for the season. I'm excited to see it.
That would certainly make things interesting if you can get those minutes from Dowda that are helpful to winning games. You could certainly use it when it comes to having a deeper team and make a run in March. That's Matt Dowell from Watch Fox. Matt, appreciate the time as always. Good sir. Looking forward to seeing you here at CLA soon.
Thanks, guys, and appreciate it. Have a good day.
Good stuff from Matt. He's a winner. Noah's a winner, too. We'll give our winners for today's show, brought to you by the Golden Spur, coming up next to round out the early game.
Winners. Winners.
And every day I have to assure former 49ers head coach and Chicago Bears legend Mike Singletary that we have winners for today's show. As always, brought to you by the Golden Spur. And the first winner that I have for today's show, local television. Yesterday, my man Nick Harvey from WIS was in here when Preston had to leave. Noah Chass from ABC Columbia sitting here with me right now in Studio 803. We just had Matt Dowell from Watch Fox on the phone. We are just one WLTX, person away. And I guess maybe that's our boycott of Reggie winning the Corley Pool Solutions Checkered Flag Challenge.
There you go. Yeah.
Jen, I knew we'd get vengeance somewhere, and I guess that's it.
Yep, we're keeping him out of the mix right now.
Until he terrorizes us when the Daytona 500 starts and he tries to win another one of those.
Exactly.
Things. It wasn't fair. He just ran away with it. Just ran away with it. We'll get our vengeance soon enough, but local television, these guys do a fantastic job of being at everything, getting you the visuals, bringing you all the news. It is not dead. It is still very much valuable, and you guys do a fantastic job. So it's an honor to have you guys come in, hang out with me whenever you're able to do it.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate all the other local TV stations doing what they do, and we love being able to come into your platform here in the radio world and sort of, have a crossover event. So that's always the best.
Stuff.
Well, thank you. My winner, a little more selfish here, Nick Foles.
Yes.
And really any backup quarterback, but specifically Nick Foles with all the Jarrett Stidham talk. He's the winner here. He's the guy that's been pointed to when everyone says, could it be done? Can it be done? It has. Look at this guy. So he's been the winner for the past couple days ever since that Bo Nix injury. So Nick Foles is one of my winners today.
I guess you can say Nick Foles is to the Denver Broncos now what Indiana is to every other college football team that has yet to reach like a college football playoff or reach the mountaintop or is stuck in what they'd consider to be obscurity. Well, they did it. There's a pathway. It's not completely hopeless or impossible because we have seen it done. The Denver Broncos can be, if I'm Jarrett Stidham, I'm watching a lot of Nick Foles tape just for inspiration.
He is the symbol of hope for these teams. Like Kurt Signetti and Fernando Mendoza are the symbol of hope for all these CFP teams.
Another winner that I have for today's show, Family Feuds. Now, Family Feud, fun game show. All right, shout out Steve Harvey. But there is a story on ESPN.com about Jeannie Buss and the Buss family selling the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, they sold it for like $10 billion, and they got a ton of money for it. But it was known as being maybe the key example of how good a family-run business can be in professional sports. The Rooneys with the Pittsburgh Steelers are one of those two, but the Busses with the Los Angeles Lakers were one. And I was always kind of surprised to see them actually sell their franchise. Dr. Jerry Buss, the original owner of the Lakers, for the longest time, when he reached a point where he had some financial trouble with the Lakers, he goes, well, it's a famous quote where he said, well, I could sell the Lakers and I could get a lot of money in return and fix a lot of issues, but what would I do with all this money? I'd probably want to buy the Los Angeles Lakers. So he never sold them, right? And his kids kind of had that same mentality. Well, there is a real feud within that family, and it is a very interesting story on ESPN.com. Highly recommend the read. And it, I read through that and it felt like I was, watching Succession all over again, which is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. But if you're into drama, if you're into family feuds, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. In the Buss family drama that you can read now on ESPN.com with some fantastic reporting, highly recommend giving that a read.
You gave me the pitch. I'm going to go read that after this. I'm curious to see all the inner workings of how that played out over there in Los Angeles. It's the Lakers. They're always, it's Showtime. It's always drama.
Yep.
But this sounds like even more enticing, popcorn-eating drama. So I'm excited to dig into that.
Yeah, spoiler alert. There was a quote of, you should never have been born in there, and that's all I'll leave it at.
Is that from like a 16-year-old daughter or it's...
It's the best part.
Okay, all right.
That's the breadcrumb that I will leave to get you to read that.
I like that. My winner, another winner for today, Raven Johnson. We didn't get to talk about her during our preview of the basketball game, but she's just, as Dawn Sterry says, she is a winner. Doesn't have the gaudiest stats, never really on the play sheet when you're trying to scout a team who you got to account for in terms of production, but she makes winning plays. She's consistent. She's fifth in the nation with her assist-to-turnover ratio. Got a career high in points and a career high in SEC scoring for herself. So she is someone who is a factor in every game. You don't think about it when you're previewing it, but if they have her, they have a good chance. I think she'll make an impact tonight against Oklahoma.
Raven Johnson is one of my favorite archetype of college basketball players. That's the floor general point guard, defensive lockdown player, gets everybody involved, can score if she really needs to. It's not the first option, but runs the offense, gets people involved, is kind of the vocal leader on the team too. And those are like in history, always been some of my favorite point guards in basketball that are always just great winners. They play defense, they get folks involved.
And it's less when she needs to, it's when the team needs her. She's a bucket. If she needs to be, she can be a bucket.
Yes, absolutely. And she showed that against Texas. And those were two veteran buckets at the end of that game to help them win it. And last one here before we get out to Carlos Beltran. We gave Andrew Jones some love too, but Carlos Beltran, one of my favorite players in the MLB. He is now inducted into the Hall of Fame. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri, they're always winners. They're the extra point, and they're always next, and they're next now.